know at the hearing the last time, Mr. May had submitted the proper paperwork mailed to the proper neighboring property owners, and the address at that time of Mr. May was in Massachusetts. So, and I know that his sister resided on one of the units and that the other property was being leased to somebody else. So I don't know whether now the new mailing we got indicates that it's Albert Avenue, so I don't know whether Mr. May has relocated back to the property or not, but that would be a point of interest, particularly if in fact this is going to be grandfathered or approved as a quote-unquote accessory apartment when it requires owner occupancy. So the other thing I was told was by Charles that this has to be applied for each time the property changes hands, and this is a question for the commission. I want to make sure that in fact that's kind of out there publicly, that it's not automatically grandfathered, but perhaps the property could be marketed as such as having a currently compliant accessory apartment, and that the prospective owner would be apprised that they would have to reapply again. And again, I would have no objection to that, provided that the parameters were met of it being owner occupied. My other concern is, and I was told this would be done via a sworn or signed affidavit, that is basically what you do. You make a declaration that I'm living in the property, that I reside there, and that I have a tenant in place. It doesn't have to be related, and I don't have a problem with that either, again, provided there's an owner present. So at what point does the town recertify or make sure that that happens? Clearly, the whole history of what happened here has been a problem, because there's been a lot of lack of clarity going all the way back to, I guess, between the 30s and the 60s, when this property was credentialed, I guess, as a proper arrangement, I guess, by virtue of the prior owners in the town and the town officials. So that's kind of where I stand on the matter. And I really, again, want to make sure that people understand I'm not here to take away anyone's rights, and that I'm here to be as supportive as I can by looking out also for my own at the same time, which I have a right to do. But again, I support it, provided that it's in accordance with the owner-occupied status that was described to me. And again, if I'm interpreting that correctly, I'm going to turn to the members of the committee to let me know that I didn't interpret that correctly. But that's what I'd like to see. Again, a big distinction between investor-owned, absentee landlord, and versus an accessory apartment where the person would reside on site. And I think, again, also, too, in this day and age, it would be very marketable to someone perhaps with multi-generational living, or somebody who needs an extra income to help pay their mortgage. We know mortgage rates are on the rise. So the property would have appeal if that were approved. I think the property could be marketed, but I just wanted to go ahead and say that I don't think I have anything. I think I covered, I didn't stick to my items here, but I think I've covered all the salient points. I wrote them out. I'm going to take just a quick moment to look. So accessory. The other part I had a question for the committee is about the ratio of space. I did not ask that of Charles when I spoke to him, and I don't know what the requirements are. I heard 60-40. I don't know if there is a requirement. It sounds like there is, regarding space ratio between the primary unit and the accessory apartment in terms of square footage. I think that's pretty much everything. And then I guess, again, basically, as I reiterated, how does one go ahead and check, later on, the validity that the person is still living there, residing on site? Do they check tax returns? Do they check voter registration records? What mechanisms are there in place to protect? I'm not saying that Mr. May would engage in appropriate activity, or any future person would that buys the property, but there needs to be some type of protection in place to make sure that, in fact, the town's intent to have it as an owner-occupied with an accessory apartment would be carried out. So if those are points that the committee could answer, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Do you want to answer as many of those as you can just from the text of the regulations and what the town process is?
So in terms of a typical accessory unit, they are not to exceed 850 square feet or 40% of the floor area. In this case, the accessory apartment is 1,052 square feet, so it's 50% of the total.
That's not a huge difference. I wouldn't, for the record, I wouldn't necessarily have an objection to that.
In terms of the owner occupancy, the owner of an accessory apartment is is required to occupy either the principal or the accessory
Okay.
dwelling, and they are to provide a sworn notarized statement. Typically, what we ask is that they provide that yearly to the
Okay.
department.
So there is a safeguard in place that it's not just done once and it's herever just assumed for the next 20 years it's going to be in place.
That would be a typical condition of approval
Okay.
for an accessory apartment.
Okay. Those are the big questions. And then as far as it conveying to the next owner, Mr. May did express his intent to sell the property. So it would be basically, it would be something that he could potentially market if it's approved now through the use of his realtor and say that it's currently a vetted apartment.
And then the new owner would have to
Would have to
provide-
apply, but because there's some history going back to it, that, it would likely, and again, I would have no objection to any future owner, again, provided those parameters were met. So, okay, I think that's pretty much answers my questions. I don't know if I just went through everything, but those are my concerns, and I do support I want to go on record as saying I support even with the variance, it's a very minimal difference. I mean, it's not like it's an extra 1,000 square feet above the allowable amount. I wouldn't have a problem personally, because I think I'm the only one here that's speaking out, maybe perhaps with some slight opposition, but I'm really not opposed even to that difference in the square footage. But again, I want to say that I don't support this as being a two-family property, and there is a distinct difference. When I purchased the property, my own home, which I've poured a ton of money into, I would not have purchased in that neighborhood if there were two-family homes. I made a very conscious decision. I issued very, very clear directives to the realtor with whom I worked with actually here, Sandy Whitaker, who actually resides here in the town, that I was only interested in looking at homes that were principally occupied by single-family homes. I didn't want to live in a condo. But and an accessory apartment, again, that's owner-occupied, I don't really have any objection to. So thank you to the committee.
George?
I have a question.
For me?
Hold on.
Oh,
Are you aware of any other two-family homes in your neighborhood? I drove around the neighborhood. I've been in town a long time,
okay,
to say the least.
Okay.
I've never been through there thoroughly, and they look like all single-family. other than this.
yeah, they are, and that's a very good point that you raised. There are, I believe, and it's interesting, I looked at a house at one point that might have been a two-family because of the way it was configured. At one point, it was also in the neighborhood, but clearly had been reverted back to a one-family, as the gentleman over here described. Most of them are, a lot of the, quite frankly, I think most people would agree, most of the homes are little ranches. They're little ranch-style houses. They were built, my house was built in 1950. I think some of the properties on Albert Avenue might be a little bit newer. Mr. May's home, I think, was built earlier, and I think we had said, they were talking about things going back to the 30s. But there is a possibility. There are some homes that are raised ranches, which typically, I grew up in one, that typically have a space downstairs with a full bath and a little kitchenette for entertaining, that could conceivably be made into those properties. So, and again, I don't know whether they use there's no separate requirement for separate meeting room of utilities or anything like that. I'm not looking to see that. I'm just saying, in theory, there's a couple of properties that could perhaps have the potential to go this route of somebody with what I would characterize as not lots and lots of modifications. But again, it is principally owner-occupied. I don't know of too many rentals. They're primarily owner-occupied properties, quite frankly, and they're all single families. And again, maybe a couple of exceptions where somebody could go ahead and maybe perhaps adapt. But I think primarily they're all just owner-occupied. I mean, there might be multi-generational living in one unit, but I don't know of any that have any accessory apartments or two families and so forth. So,
Could I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
With you? I heard you say a couple times that you'd be opposed to a two-family situation. I think you understand this application is for accessory apartment.
right, exactly. And but I had come before the same committee about, I think it was back in one of the May hearings, and at that time there was a petition for it to be a two-family. So I very strongly, and I got there's a certain amount of, shall we say, stress. My intent then and now, and it has not changed, was that it should not be a two-family house. And I do understand the distinction about the accessory apartment. And again, the big caveat for me is the owner occupancy, okay? So even if it were a two-family house, I mean, recognize that some people might, have a landlord on the first floor. I think this is a little bit different. The wording is a little bit different. And the fact that it can't be investor-owned. A two-family property could be investor-owned. I could buy a property here in Wethersfield or in Hartford, and I could live in Albany, New York, or Chicago, Illinois. That's not going to be the case here. I think there's better oversight, and I think that most people will probably agree that if the landlord is living on the premises, the tenants are more likely to take, pride in their living arrangements. So that's kind of where I fall on that. So again, I do support it, and I wanted to make the distinction. So,
Okay. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Is there anybody else in the public that wants to come in on this application? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Victoria Carafa. I live at 70 Albert Avenue. I live across the street from the Maze. I've been in my house almost over 30 years, and as long as I lived there, that was a two-family house. It's always been. So I'm in favor of whatever the Maze want to do. I would not like our street to be a two-family. House is okay for two-family, but I think an exception should be made for the Maze. After all, he bought the house, he paid taxes, the town of Wethersfield, the assessment said it was a two-family, so I think he should be given some kind of consideration to do what he wants to do to sell the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that wants to comment on this?
Hi, my name is Karen May, and I live at 65 Albert Avenue. This is my wonderful brother. He bought the house 21 years ago as a two-family with the intent of the family living there, which I have. When he decided to sell, it was time. He was going to retire. That's the move you had to make. He was very particular on who he was going to sell to. He was not going to sell to investors. He was going to make sure that the neighborhood stayed the way it is. We've gotten very close to many of our neighbors, and we were lucky enough to find someone who wanted to purchase a home as a two-family, as an investment, and we were going to be allowed to stay, which was thrilling for us. And we would have taken care of the house the way we have for the last 21 years. Unfortunately, because we were blindsided at the zoning board, we had absolutely no idea of all the different variants that went on in 1937, 38, in the 60s, when it finally came to whatever end it came to. Clearly, he was looking for a two-family house at the time. We would not be in this position today if the house was listed the way it was supposed to be, if it was truly supposed to be a single family. So here we are. And if you give him the variant for an in-law extension, I have to leave my home. But I want what's best for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So, my name is Lena D'Angelo, and I am Tom's realtor. I work for Caldwell Banker. And so just to go through a little bit of timing, the timing of the whole event, Tom and I, we listed the house on March 4th. We went under contract pretty quickly because two families in Wethersfield really aren't popular. Before we listed it, the town card, going back, has always been two-family, and actually on the grand list, it's listed as a two-family, so it's taxed as a two-family house. Went under contract relatively quickly, and buyers scheduled their home inspections for the next couple of days, and then she went to the town hall because she just, wanted to do some due diligence, and she asked, there was just one mailbox on the house, is this, can you just double check? And when she talked to Charles, at that point, he looked back and saw that it was always a two-family, but at some point, the Palazzos had been getting the special permits just to renew their two-family status. That day, so that was on March 20th, we went under contract. On March 23rd, 2 days later, that's when the town card was changed back to a single family. And bonus, his assessment went up, his taxes went up that same day. So I was notified, Tom was notified by myself, because I was notified by the buyer's agent. That no one from the town even bothered to call my client at that time. So we obviously went to the town, we talked to Charles to see if we could work something out, discuss it, and he suggested that, we didn't like his decision that we go in front of the Board of Appeals, and that's what we did. Which really was a waste of time, because 3.5 months later, Tom still doesn't have his house back on the market. The house structurally for 85 years is structured as a two-family house. There's no question, it was built that way. They started working on the first floor, and then the next couple of years, they got permits to put the plumbing in on the second floor, put the electrical on the second floor, so it was always structured as a two-family. So to tell my client, and this is what Charles had said to Tom, was just switch it back. Switch it to a single-family house. How do you do that? So appeals meeting comes and goes April 25th, and at that time, we connected with Denise, and really now, this is where we are in front of you guys, to try and get some semblance of value back to Tom's house, because as a single-family house, as Tom said, we can't sell it we listed it for $279,900. It's not structured as a single-family house. The value's not there. So at least if he could get approved for the variance for a special permit to have it as an accessory apartment, at least the person coming in that we market it to has some semblance of that two-family income coming in. So that's what we're here today to do. I mean, it's unfortunate. 85 years, the house was built in 1937, and there was even a complaint in the file, because I went through the file after the fact and went digging, and in 2015 there was a complaint by a neighbor saying, hey, I think that's a two-family house and that's an illegal two-family house running over there. The zoning board sent a note back to that neighbor and said, nope, it's legitimately two-family house. It's on the town card as a two-family house. So that's where we are today. It's unfortunate, and I like the words that we use, the grandfathering and all that good stuff, and I get it. So we hope that you can agree to the special request from Mr. May today. Any questions for me?
Quick question. What was the date of that complaint that they investigated the town? Like what year?
2015, I believe. I have,
So recent history, it wasn't in the 60s, it wasn't in the
oh,
30s.
no, it was recent,
your life.
2015. Yeah,
George
2015.
was in the
So there's
middle
been, ample time for someone to say, hey, wait a second, red flag. Is it not?
And
That's-
now, let me know, first of all, are you from town?
Yes, I live in Wethersfield.
Oh, so you're a stakeholder also. Right. So you did your due diligence, as you do on all your listings, and it was until someone, that's uncommon for someone to dig into this thing like that?
So typically when a realtor lists a property, we go to the town hall, we open the file to see if there's any open permits. Of course, we look at the town card. It's on, Map Geo, so it's easy to find. And that's what a realtor would do. So there wouldn't really be a reason to say, my client bought the house in 2001 as a two-family. It was listed as a two-family. I have the old MLS listing. So there wasn't really any reason to say, hey, can someone double check and just make sure it's not a single-family house?
So, and also you said that, so on the 23rd, someone from the town just arbitrarily changed it back without,
Charles Morrison told Fauna to change the town card. Fauna is the assessor.
so there was no hearing, just done.
No. And he,
Contrary to what some might think.
no, there was no, it was after the fact. The
Okay.
appeals meeting was after the fact. The due diligence was after the fact. Charles didn't even go out to the property until a week before we went to the appeals meeting in April. The appeals meeting was April 25th. Just FYI.
Got it. So just arbitrarily, someone in one of them just changed the records because that's what their interpretation was.
Correct.
And then it did come to a commission, and however it was presented and what was asked for, the commission made their record.
And they made their recommendation, and we get it, because they made their recommendation on us appealing Charles's decision. which was a waste of time. We shouldn't even really have had that appeals meeting. We should have went right directly to P&Z.
So would you guess if Charles just presented his side of the equation without already just changing it, and that your taxes didn't get changed on the property at that time either, correct?
They did.
No, they went up, you said?
They went up, yeah.
Ah.
11%, the assessment went up that
Got
day.
it. Got it.
Yes.
So that's how the process works.
Yes, ma'am. I heard you state in your presentation that this matter came before the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2015?
No. In 2015, there was a complaint made by a neighbor, and it was a letter written and submitted and said that they thought that this house was operating as a two-family, and they didn't think it was a legal two-family. And then a notation went back out to the neighbor saying that, in fact, it was a two-family.
Then when was the date that you said it came before the zoning appeals prior to this decade? They had, I think I heard you say that the Board of Zoning Appeals found that it was a two-family dwelling. I don't see any record of that, at least presented in the memorandum.
No, I don't think I mentioned a date.
By Mr. Charles.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned a date prior to what's happening right now currently for Mr. May.
Well, I do say, the latest evidence of action prior to this, the scenario of events that has taken place during this century, it goes back to May the 2nd, 1966.
Yeah.
And I quote from Mr. Charles's memorandum. He stated that, quote, on May 2, 1966, application was received by the board requesting a variance for the continued use of a single-family residence as a two-family residence. The stated hardship at the time was, quote, due to not being able to keep the trucks at above location, I had to purchase land to keep them, not knowing that the house could not be used as a two-family at all times. I purchased land in Rocky Hill with a home to keep watch and security from vandalism on the vulnerable equipment. Quote, end quote. Quoting again from Mr. Charles's memorandum on May 2, 1966, Michael and Christina Palazzo made an application seeking permission for the continued use of a single-family residence as a two-family residence. The ZBA met on June 27, 1966, and heard the application number 2349-66. I hereby submit the following informational excerpts from that public hearing minutes. 1. Joseph J. Castardo, 63 Preston Street, Hartford, appeared on behalf of this application for his father-in-law. He explained that in 1946 permission was given by this board to permit the use of this house as a two-family dwelling for use by the owner's family. It has now become necessary for the owner to purchase a home in Rocky Hill in order to keep watch over his trucks, which he is not permitted to park at the Wethersfield address. Permission is now being requested to permit this to remain a two-family dwelling with Mr. Palazzo's parents living on the first floor and being rented to a non-family member on the second floor. It was pointed out that each of these 5-room apartments has its own heating and plumbing facilities. Mrs. Joseph Palazzo, number 2, Mrs. Joseph Palazzo, 61 Albert Avenue, daughter of the applicant, restated the facilities available to each apartment and emphasized that this move to Rocky Hill is necessary to supervise their trucks. It was stated that Mr. Palazzo's parents are elderly, and it is hoped that they will be renting the second floor to someone well known to the family. A motion was then made by Commissioner Sente, seconded by Commissioner Clinton, and a poll of the board. It was unanimously voted that the application be denied. And that was the action of the ZB at that time, 1966.
Yep.
And that was the last application of any official action regarding this property prior to the current episode.
Right, so respectfully.
I'm just trying to clarify the record.
No, for the record, that's correct, and I saw that document as well, but that was 1966, and respectfully, that's my whole point is why wasn't the town card changed? I mean, it's 2022. It still remained on the grand list as a two-family. It's still on the town card as a two-family. If it was denied back then and not renewed, why weren't the records changed?
Obviously, we can't give an answer about any aspect of, what
Right, so, my
prior
client's not,
officials of the town did,
Right,
but
it-
that's what the record states, ma'am.
and I agree, and that's fine, that's the record, but we're still, here we are today, 2022, we carried this structure, this house, this two-family house, all the way. They sold the property as a two-family, my client bought it as a two-family, and because someone asked a question about a mailbox, his town card was changed his status was changed to a single family, told to switch it back.
So I kind of look at this pretty funny. 1966, no record was ever changed, but yet some guy in an office over here takes his pen and goes, oh, it's a single family. So just one error and another error, and now we have this.
Right.
And this could be financial harm. This is a big deal for someone. And there's no malice anywhere, but just the lack of a stroke of a pen and then the stroke of a pen swings the pendulum to the left or to the right. Did you mention in 2015 there was a complaint lodged, the town did respond?
Mm-hmm.
And the town responded, which is not in this document, that the town responded, it is a two-family, correct?
Right.
So in modern times, let's say, the age of computers, it's 2015. So we're talking about record errors in record keeping. 16 and someone with a stroke of a pen. I mean, this isn't someone's lawn that's too high. This isn't a $100 fine. This isn't a trip on the sidewalk. This is a major deal that's going to alter someone's family financially. I understand the impact of the neighborhood, but it's.
That's the document.
Thank you.
Word file?
Yep. You got it.
Right?
It's not in our pack, but that's it. Our town limited.
Who responded? Who in the town? It's not on a computer. Okay.
Just because I have one doesn't mean I can use it.
Yeah, it's strange.
Handwritten note,
That was digging. I was in the town for a few days.
Christmas card.
and it was apparently, gee,
If you miss one page in a
by
trial, it could be a
Monica-
big deal.
I guess it's on a notepad,
Yeah.
and stamped with Monica Holloway,
Oh, yeah.
CZEO.
Yeah, I
CEO,
remember.
Property Maintenance Officer for the town.
Okay.
I
So-
think the thing does kind of boil down to issues of the law, the record versus the equities and the fairness of the situation.
Agreed.
Can I ask a
Agreed.
question?
Sure, Dave.
Just to clarify, putting all that stuff aside, the difference between a two-family and an accessory is owner-occupied?
Right. And here's the thing, Tom just wants to do the right thing and make sure that it's transferred to the next owner, the next, buyer, properly. It wasn't transferred properly to him.
But
You know,
but
he-
the applicant's looking for an accessory apartment. Is that, you're going to be happy with that? Is that, basically, that's what you want? You'd be happy with that?
I thought that's what,
Yep.
that's all I could get.
That's right. Okay, no, I'm just trying to understand what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to get the two-family through the
No, I
appeal of
understand. I'm
Charles
just trying to-
Zarder. Now we're going through the accessory apartments.
Right.
Because everybody keeps talking about the two-family thing, and two-family doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Because he's asking for an accessory apartment. So
Right,
that's-
No, I
right.
mean,
This
I mean,
is
it's like
just
we
for
wanna understand it,
right,
that's
historical knowledge,
understand.
where
Yeah.
we're coming from, and, hardship.
understand.
Yeah, I think it's the context, but, going through this process and having a specific thing that's being applied for will, sort of wipe out any of the ambiguity and uncertainty and urban legends and so forth.
But, the bottom line comes down to this. If we don't approve this, his request to have an accessory apartment, which means owner occupied, that's clear. I mean, you keep bouncing back and forth, and let's just clarify. The request is for an accessory apartment transferred to a new owner as such. The new owner then has to come back to this board to reinstate that accessory condition, right?
Correct.
That's what you're asking for?
Yes.
All right, so
Well, they
this,
don't
So
have
it's-
to come back, they just go
Well,
to
okay.
Denise.
they
Or it would have
they have
be
to come back to the
contingency of
town.
sale, so they're not even, the sale might not go through until they come in and have to appeal for this also.
But the situation Mr. May's in right
No, it
now,
goes with the house.
it's listed
Oh, it doesn't
back as
say
a
so.
one-family.
Okay.
So if we
Goes
don't
with it.
approve this, he's gonna have to sell it as a one-family, and there's basically two separate units.
Right.
So he's in a catch-22.
Well, he's asking for us to put an accessory apartment in.
Right,
And
and-
to me, I
and-
don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay,
My end.
all right, okay. Because at least that will give him the value,
Yeah, I
you get it. I
Yeah, we
mean,
get
the
it.
semblance of a two-family value.
We
Yeah.
understand.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for purpose of our records, could you request that the lady, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name.
Lena D'Angelo.
Ms. D'Angelo would kindly make a copy of that 2015 note to the planning office to complete our record.
Sure,
Sure.
no problem.
Yeah, you can just send it to Denise.
I'll scan it and email it to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, or?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the public want to comment on this application?
Could I say one more thing briefly?
Yeah, you get to come back up after the,
Oh,
once I make sure nobody else does, then you can come back.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else? All right, now you can come on back up, Ben.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here tonight for the accessory apartment because that's the only thing that, I thought that was my last alternative. When I appealed Charles' decision, I thought that was it. If it wasn't for appealing his decision, if I had known I could go right to, well, I didn't know, if I could go before the planning board with this issue instead of at first trying to just appeal his decision, I would have been before you tonight asking to have it called a two-family. That's what I would have been. I thought this was my final option.
No, actually, we couldn't give you a two-family. We can give you an accessory apartment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Anybody before we close the hearing?
Motion to close.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion's been made to close the hearing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Someone want to make a motion to start discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve application 2111-22Z for Thomas Allen May for a special permit in accordance with 3.5.3 of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations to formalize an accessory apartment at 65 Albert Avenue, as it will be owner occupied with a 50-50 ratio.
Second.
All right. And the requirement for the affidavit and the updating, that is in the regulations or something that staff will handle, or do we have to make it a condition?
To require them to resubmit yearly would be a condition of approval.
Okay.
We'll accept that.
All right. Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay. And who's second? Peter?
Second.
George? Okay, you accept that condition?
Yeah. I do.
Okay.
Condition being what, 1 year?
Well, yearly update. It's not like it has to come back and be reapproved. They just have to verify the
There's
owner.
information verification, that's it, not a,
Just
Yeah,
the
okay.
affidavit.
Yeah, it's not coming back
Got it.
here
Yep.
for a public hearing. Tom?
I do have, I should have asked this before we close the hearing, because it's a question rather than comment. This application, or if the commission agrees to the application and awards the special permit, are there any other conditions, such as term of years, or will this be a permanent establishment on the record of that property and runs with the land?
Yes.
Typically, yes.
And that's my understanding. It runs with the land, so this is permanent. He doesn't have to come back again and again for another special use permit.
Not to
So
us.
this will run with the property and will apply to the next owner of the property. Second question is whether or not there are any other conditions that would be attached to this application if it is granted in terms of conditions by the commission. I don't hear any coming from members of the commission, but I just want to raise that issue, whether or not there would be other conditions. And finally, whether or not the granting of the special use permit in this instance runs afoul of or has any conflicts with or is affirmed by the latest zoning legislation that come out of the General Assembly. A parcel of questions there, but I was hoping that I could get some answer to that, or at least some remark or response.
I guess I can answer the last one, which is that it doesn't run afoul of it because the accessory dwelling unit statute would only give them as of right if it was less than 40% of the size of the principal unit. Since here they're asking for something that is more than that, the special permit is valid and isn't superseded by the statute or anything like that. To your second question, I can't think of any additional conditions that, are appropriate here. I'll defer to Denise, but usually when we've done these, the conditions are the recurring confirmation of, owner occupancy.
Yeah, I have no other suggested conditions to attach.
The onus of the recurring confirmation is on the owner of the property, right? So they would have to, what if they forget?
Well, it's on staff to remind them.
Okay.
So you put it in your Outlook calendar, call Thomas May.
We've seen that, since the 60s, some things were missed, so how do you keep track of all this going forward is kind of my question.
I mean, I think the biggest point is especially recertifying with the new property owner that the intent is to be owner occupied.
I don't think the neighborhood's forgetting about this anytime soon.
Right.
Probably not.
And you can't go around all over town checking out these kind of.
All right.
Oh,
Any other questions or comments, concerns? All right. If not, motion has been made and seconded to approve the special permit. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Congratulations.
All right. Next item, 3.2, public hearing, 2112-22Z. Rebecca Colello seeking a special permit in accordance with Section 352 of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations to renew application number 1865-15Z to operate a home occupation salon at 246 Two-Rod Highway.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Rebecca. I live at 246 Two-Rod Highway. This is a continuance of my approval for the salon. This is my third time here. I've had the salon in my house for 10 years. Never had any complaints from the neighbors or any issues. It's 2 days a week that I do it, and looking for an extension. That's about it.
No complaints, no issues?
We've not received any complaints. I did get at 422 correspondence from a neighbor regarding this request that it not be granted, but in the 10 years that the salon has been in place, I've not received any complaints.
Okay. Yeah, it's an email from Christina and Pedro Silva, 22 Denison Ridge. Unable to attend. They say the request should not be granted as this is a residential area and business should not be conducted. I think it'll increase traffic on two-ride highway and bring down the neighborhood property values. There are plenty of spaces available for rent for hair salons at the Berlin Turnpike and the Silas Dean.
So
Well-
as part of a special permit, they were required to post a public hearing sign and notify all abutting property owners within 300 feet. I did receive a number of calls just inquiring what the application was, and, really having no knowledge that the salon had existed for 10 years.
Well, that's my
This
point.
is
I
the
mean,
only
they're
complaint?
new to the street
Yeah.
on Dennison Ridge. They moved in, so they're behind where our house is and probably have not known that it's been running for 10 years, so hence
That's my
why they have no
inclination,
clue what they're
yeah.
talking about. Yeah,
That's the only complaint in 7 years?
10.
10.
10?
I'm sorry.
Um,
That wasn't a complaint, it was just a request not to renew, correct?
Right.
Well, they thought it was
They didn't-
didn't exist.
they didn't
So
know it
it's a new
existed.
Yeah, I got it.
business
So that's
coming
two
in.
different,
It's
yeah.
They just didn't want to renew.
That's right.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Do you still average one client a day?
Maybe 1 to 2 on average.
That's
It's a
all.
very part-time thing, yeah.
Are you comfortable with the same conditions that have been imposed in
yeah.
the past?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from anybody up here? All right. If not, is there anybody in the public that wants to comment on this application? We'll take that as a no. Any final words?
I was just looking for a longer extension. I really don't want to have to come back every few years. I mean, I haven't had an issue and it's been 10 years at this point. So I would look for either, 10 years.
What do you want, 15 or 20 or something like that?
15 would be great.
She asked for 10.
I'll take 15.
I don't know if he's asking for more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I got out of that.
I heard they said he just got jumped to 15.
I was gonna
Right.
say, has something like this
Yeah.
ever just stuck with an owner?
I would say we close the hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Can we lock it into the owner?
No, you can't lock it into the owner.
But the new owner would have to be.
They would have to
basically
fit
all
within-
6 of those conditions. They would have to operate the same way and have
So
the
there would be
same
no
type
change
of
to the
use.
neighborhood, no matter who owns it, who tries to operate a similar.
That's right.
Right.
Make a motion to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman, or?
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve 2112 22Z for Rebecca Colello to extend and renew her application as requested for 246 Two-Route Highway for a period of 10 years with the same criteria and detail as filed 10 years ago.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Tom?
I would just, I kind of recommend to the commission that the permit be extended for 15 years instead of 10. That doesn't seem to be too great an anomaly with an operation that's been as stable and integrated into the neighborhood as this.
I love it.
I like to leave it at 10 for two reasons. One, the applicant asked for 10, and number two, we want George to be here for the renewal.
Jesus.
You're gonna have to stop making motions, give it to someone else.
Quick question. Is there any way we can take this back in later years? I think, what if like everybody on the street did what you did, what you're doing is fine, but what if everybody on the street did that and kind of got out of hand because everybody was doing it? Could we pull it back, so we don't want to do that anymore, or not really?
I'm not
No.
interested in it because I think conditions do change over time, and you never know.
Yeah. Again, right now, you can't cancel anything.
Change the home occupation regulations, or,
Well, no,
as
but
each other neighbor.
my point is if like 10 people do it, we say this is getting out of hand, and we have to say we can't do that much, we may have to pull this.
So you would
I
be
don't
taking
know.
that into consideration with that next permit, not
Yeah,
repeating
is that
it.
fair though? I mean, you gotta treat everybody fair in the street, right?
Well,
If she got it,
yeah, I think you
everybody-
do. I mean,
Okay.
but if, the people on both sides of her want to do hair in the basement too, then you look at these criteria, which essentially are designed to make it so that it's completely invisible to the neighborhood. And if they can do that rather than, having cars lined 9 deep up and down
Yeah,
to
but what
Red
if it's not
Highway.
invisible after a while? That's what I'm
Well-
trying to say, because there's too many people doing it.
Well, if each person who's doing it is required to have, no more than one client at a time and on their property and no signs and no employees and things like that, I mean, it should, be transparent.
And no complaints.
Well, what if we get a lot of complaints? Again, I have no problem with what you do, I'm just thinking, what if it gets out of hand? We have no way of pulling it back. That's my point, is you put 15, 20 years, or for as long as she owns the house, you can't ever pull it back, that's why, but I don't know. I'm fine with the vote, to be honest with you, I'm just kind of thinking.
I think if every
You're
house.
just making trouble here.
I think if every house in the neighborhood got 2 visitors a day.
Everybody else did one haircut a day. You gotta-
Which he started
No,
off
no,
with
you're
only
right,
a couple years
yeah.
anyway, so we'd be able to pull it back.
Okay.
No, you're right.
All right.
All right.
I'll vote yes.
Anything else?
Nah,
If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you in 10 years.
Thank you.
All right, next item, public hearing 211322Z. Patricia Ainzuain seeking I'm sorry about that, seeking a special permit in accordance with section 352 of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for a small tax office at 247 Ridge Road. Hi.
Hi, how are you? My name is Patricia Ainzuain, and I live in 47 Ridge Road. And I applying for a small home occupation, a tax permit to be a small office for tax prepare.
Okay.
Basically, I'm working in the afternoons. Sometimes it's a little busy in the peak time when it's most of the people got their forms to do their taxes, but other than that, it's slow down, and I just work by schedule, appointments only. Because of COVID, I don't allow a lot of people be in my house. So, that's all.
Okay. And your memo basically describes that there are 2 other people working for you Monday
Yes.
through Friday, 5 p.m. to 9:30, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
When is the peak time? Mhm.
Right, then 9 a.m. to 5, and Sunday, 11 to 5 during the peak time,
Mhm.
which you consider from January to April 15th?
Well, that's the tax season, but I'm not that busy the whole time. I would say my time is really February and some of the March. And then the rest, sometimes I don't even work. But most of the people do drops, so I work at home doing drops. Or by Zoom or phone, or some people, even because of the COVID, they don't want to get in the house, they wait outside, we do it through the phone. So that's how I operate.
Okay. And the 2 people that work for you, are they at the house, or do
Yes.
they work somewhere else?
They can work from, sometimes also by Zoom or to do the schedules. But, yeah, sometimes they're with me too.
Okay. George?
Do you have any trouble, because you have only a narrow single driveway with the 2 employees, they park out in the street or on the driveway?
Well, they park in the street, but they also park inside in the house. My driveway is pretty big. I can fit more than 8 cars.
But that's kind of narrowish, but anyway,
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
it's enough
But
space for them to park in, and
But your
even,
clients
they
and
can
the
park also.
employees, there's no real
no
conflict?
problem. It will be no problem. I didn't, the clients was parking outside, because sometimes my husband or he need to go to do some errands, or so for not to be blocked. But if there's a problem, there's not a problem, they park inside my
No
house.
problem?
No,
with
it will be no
out in the
problem.
street. One other question, I noticed somebody complained about the 11 o'clock and that kind of stuff. You don't have clients coming in at that time of the day?
11 o'clock? No, my like, at what time?
At night, I meant.
No, I don't make appointments that late.
Oh, okay.
I mean, sometimes we clean, we disinfect the house, so maybe the girls leave late because they help me out to clean the bathroom, the floor and have everything ready and be sure that all the documents are ready for the next day. But no, my appointments are not 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
Peter?
How many clients do you have roughly per day?
Well, if I do from 5 to 9:30, I could have maybe 4 or 5. Depends on how difficult are their taxes. It could take me from half hour to an hour to have a client.
And when they come, they park on the street?
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
George?
Yeah, you wouldn't have a problem with us putting a time limit at night, would you? On, like, no people coming in after 9 o'clock at night, just to keep your neighbors happy and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
No, I don't have a
Or
problem.
something like that.
Right.
That makes sense?
I can adjust myself.
Thank you. Sure.
Anybody over on this side have any questions for the applicant at this point? Tony?
Is there any reason why you haven't opened an office in a commercial district? It sounds like you're very active.
Because I have a child, 9 years old, so I rather work from home. I didn't went out because I don't have that much of the clients for me to open an office. I've been also trying to find out how much will cost me. Right now it's between $1,500 and $1,800, and I cannot rent just for 3 months because that's the only time they work. I don't work the whole year doing taxes.
So the peak period is just for 2 or 3 months?
Yeah, it's when the IRS assess the taxes. They start at the end of January, finish April 15.
Yep.
That's all what I do. I mean,
So would you be okay if we limited your use for only 3 months of the year?
yeah, that's fine.
Only 3 months of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say that maybe clients need, someone needs something in an appointment, but it's not really a lot. I mean, it might be few, but I mean, when I say few, with the fingers, I mean, but it's not really.
Mostly personal, or do you do business also?
No, personal. I don't
Only
do
personal.
business. I don't do business.
Which months do you normally do that? If we limited months, it would be January, February, March?
It's the end of January, last week of January to April 15.
How many CPAs are in your office?
I'm not a CPA, I'm a tax preparer. I have my permits as a tax preparer. I don't do, like I said, it's just simple taxes.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure, Tom.
I was looking at the diagram for your facility. The diagram is essentially the basement area of your home.
Yeah,
And in it, I see that you've got 2 offices, one 9 by 9.5 and one 9 by 14. Which one is the one that is your business occupancy office?
well, I don't work in the basement. It's actually those sections that I mark are those areas that I use. One is a small office where I sit with the client privately, and the other one is where the girls work doing their schedule or scanning the documents.
So both offices are utilized for business purpose?
Yes.
Okay. And I also see there's access from the smaller office directly into the dining room. Do you ever use the dining room for like business conferences with clients or staff?
No,
So that's solely
that's the only
personal
space that I
family
have.
use? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before I open it up to the public, there was a letter from Gregory McLeod, 237 Ridge Road, that was included in our packet. Subsequent to that, town staff was contacted by Armin Kamali, 37 Tollgate Road, who had concerns regarding traffic and parking on Ridge Road. There's an email from Jeffrey Fletcher at 26 Tollgate Road, indicating that the cars are up the road evenings and weekends, and that they tend to present a safety hazard for people pulling out of Tollgate. So they're speaking out against it because of the impact on the neighborhood. And there's a petition signed by, I would guess, about 25 property owners saying, "We, the immediate residents of 247 Ridge, want to express our total objection to the tax accounting business being allowed to continue operating out of the residence at 247 Ridge Road. It's been a continued nuisance, decreasing the quality of life and decreasing their home values." And it refers to the letter that was in our packet for specific instances of, what they were talking about. I don't know, did you have anything else before we open it up to the public?
No.
I mean, you'll have a chance to come back up after
Sure.
that. Okay. Peter.
I'm just confused about one point. Is this special permit for a small home occupation new, or is it renewal? Because it sounds like you've been operating like this already.
It's a business that's in place, and this is a result of a complaint through our zoning enforcement officer, so it was something that we did not know that was existing. So they're looking to,
You did not know this business was being run in this house?
our zoning enforcement officer was alerted to it because of the neighborhood complaint.
So they were operating without a special permit?
That's right.
Yeah, and they're seeking to legalize it here tonight.
Okay.
All right. Anybody in the public want to come up and speak on this application, sir?
Gregory McLeod.
You can pull it up so you don't have get scoliosis from it.
Gregory McLeod, 237 Ridge Road. I'm on the northbound side of her. It starts around 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday, like she says, but it goes to about 11:30 at night. Cars start about 5 o'clock, pulling up, or two workers park in front of my house. Go in, get it ready, sometimes when she's not even home yet. And it could be 10 cars at a time there, lining up on the street. That's why all the people have signed that. And she doesn't use her driveway. There's no cars in the driveway. So they pull up and they hug the side of the street like 3 houses back because they're looking for the address. They're not familiar with the street, they don't know it. The majority of them seem to be coming in from Hartford because they do a K-turn and a U-turn and they go north right back. They don't come in from the south side. And they park about a foot or 2 feet off my driveway, and I come home from UPS at almost 10 o'clock every night and have a hard time getting in my driveway. I've called the police several times. They can't do nothing because there's no, rule how close you can park to a driveway. And when I pull out, I have to go in the northbound lane to go southbound. I can't make the turn. And I can't see oncoming traffic because there's like 8, 9 cars lined up. I can't judge distance, and I almost get hit. And they knock on my door thinking that I'm the business. They've knocked on a couple other people's doors thinking that they're the business. And it's annoying. And it's insurance liability. They walk across my lawn. Garbage. More often than there used to be, because there's a lot of people that walk the street with the dogs, jogging, riding bikes. It's a safety hazard to the pedestrians and me. And that's my side, and according to your side, for requirements, she doesn't meet a lot of them. It says she's the only one that could carry on the business with no employees. She's got employees. Adequate off-street parking, there's none. The safety hazard, it's downgrading residential property values in the neighborhood. And she has people coming in all the time. The previous person with the hair salon, I would classify that as a small business. 1 or 2 a day. This is not a small business. It's been growing every year the last 4 years. And it's not good for the area. It's a residential area. And that's why all those people sign that, because they want to keep it that way. And they can all verify the cars at that hour at night are all lined up.
The light's not far from this location there on Ridge Road, by Knott Street, right?
The light?
The light. Isn't there a cross light at the top of the hill there?
It's flashing.
That's way up. I'm
for you.
237, that's way up.
The light's at Jordan Lane.
Okay. When you see the cars parked, are they mostly on pavement? Are any of them also on the grass? I mean, they're trying to get off the road?
No,
They're on the pavement?
yes, both sides. Odd even side. Makes it very hard and narrow. Whether it be daytime or night, you can't judge distance because you can't see. I could barely fit 2 cars between my driveway and her driveway.
What's the most, I think you mentioned about 10 cars that you've seen there
Yeah.
parked
Yeah,
along that street?
there could be, at one time, there'd be 10 or 15 people in that house between everything. And when it first happened, I even told her husband, there's a tree in dead center. From the tree to the driveway, I didn't want no cars parked. He says, I told her. So we put a cone out. And a couple of my neighbors says, where'd you get that cone? I want one. On the other side, the Fords, on the south side of her. So she put the cone out all the time. But then she stopped. She didn't want to do it no more, so she didn't do it. And when you don't do that, then another car parks where that is, and I can't see. And I'm going to get hit, or I'm going to hit somebody, and then, it's going to turn into a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
My name is Gerhard Merkel. I live on 225 Ridge Road. I'm about 3 houses down from the applicant. That means there are 2 houses in between. I have no problem at all with the applicant doing business as a tax consultant at her home. My problem is, as a neighbor, the large number of cars parked in front of her property and in front of the neighbor's property. I have seen 8 to 10 cars parked there. Quite often, I have seen routinely there might be 5 to 8 cars parked in front of her property and in front of the neighbor's property. And until now, I didn't know that it was the applicant who put up the cones, but I remember there was a cone in front of this gentleman's driveway, and it was routinely, day by day, there were cars parked up to that driveway, which means there have at least been 6 or 7 or 8 cars were parked in front of it. I know at least one occasion where, probably was on several occasions, one I know for sure, where cars were parked on the other side of the road. So you had cars parked on both sides of Ridge Road. Now, Ridge Road, during the rush hour, it has a lot of traffic. Cars on both sides is definitely a problem. It's hazardous, and it can easily lead to accidents. On at least one occasion, again, there was a car parked as far down or as far north as my property. That means, there were houses in between, there were cars in front of it, there was also a car on my property. So, I think in summary, what I'm complaining about, again, I have no problem with this lady doing business, tax business in her home. But having cars on the street, the big thing for me is it affects, of course, character, the nice term, character of the neighborhood. It does. Clearly, that's not going on. It's not a party for one night. This is going on for, as we said, about 3 months of the year. Every day, every night. Second, it's unsafe. It really is unsafe. I found on a number of occasions where I back out of my driveway and I can't really see the oncoming traffic. That is a problem, and I think that has to be addressed. And finally, I actually went through your 3.5.2 home occupation, and it does. Also, you said in your agenda that there is plenty of parking. Yes, I believe from, looking at the property from using Google Earth, there is plenty of parking in the back of the home, but it was not used. So there are several sections of that paragraphs of that 3.5.2 which she does not comply with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public want to comment on this application?
My name is Charles Ford, 249 Ridge Road. I'm the next door neighbor on the other side of the house than the previous gentleman. I've noticed the cars coming. I really don't have a problem. As the cars are coming down the street, I'm on the opposite side of their house, so the cars have to go past their house and then park in front of mine. And I get very few. Occasionally I get a car in front of my house, but it doesn't really bother me. I don't have any problem with getting in and out of my driveway or anything like that. I do notice that there are a few more cars on the other side, but it doesn't seem to be much of a problem as far as I can tell. But I certainly don't have a problem at all. Okay?
Right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Is there anybody else in the public that wants to comment on this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Giuseppe Ainzuain. I'm Patricia's brother. I have here the note of what Mr. Greg sent over, and I may have some answers for it. And I remember we had an issue with his parking, or means his entrance, which I spoke personally, respectfully with you, and I proposed to put a cone, and park my car in front of his house, and on back of my car put a cone every day. I'm the one, because my sister comes a little bit late because he has her job. I come a little bit earlier to open the house and let the ladies come to prepare everything, set up everything. So when the time comes, Customer comes, everything is fine, they can start to work. And I have been doing that, I can say, every day. Now, there has been days that I wasn't there for some reason, that I was trying to be there most of the times, and maybe they forgot, like everybody can do that, they forgot to put the cone. But that doesn't mean that my sister and her assistants were every hour they have 2 customers, so they park on the front of the house, 2 cars. Some of them because they live far, some of them they come from Berlin, from Farmington, from other towns. They come a little bit earlier. Of course, you can manage people's time, so they can try to be early because they think that because they come early, they will leave early, but everybody has an appointment, and we respect that. Now, I see that Mr. Greg was, talking. Well, we know already the time season, which starts at the last week of January and is until April 15. So it's mostly 2 months and a half that we have to do this. And we try to be organized as much as we can because of us and because of the people, because we think that they need to have be safety, and try to be the most accurate with our times so we don't get behind with the people. Now, my point is, as I said, we schedule everyone so we don't get overwhelmed, and we don't get overwhelmed with the parking outside. Some people, they park inside, they ask, they go inside, or sometimes we tell them, you know what, you can park inside. Some people don't want to because maybe they don't have the skills to, go backwards or try to turn around. We understand, we can push people to do that. That's why people sometimes decide to park outside, common sense. But we try to do things as fast as we can so people can leave and we don't overwhelm the parking. Some people make mistakes. We have, in some time, new customers, not much, but because they're new, sometimes they're looking for the address. They make mistakes, they park maybe in front of Greg's house, or maybe a little bit far, because sometimes people call us, where is your house? When we go out, they're like half a block far away from the house, so kind of a little bit lost. Okay, so, but then when they learn where exactly the address is, they come directly. We don't try to overwhelm, I don't live with my sister, but of course, same as you, as everybody, we like to live in peace without bothering anybody. That's why my first step was to talk with Greg and try to get an agreement to find the best way to don't bother him, with a parking entrance. I understand people, sometimes they don't think, they are stubborn, I don't know what concept gift to this, and they just park one in back of the other, and they did that block into his driveway. We try to fix it right away. We are not going to let that happen. If that happened once, we are not going to let that happen twice or 3 or 4 or 70 times. Okay, so, and believe me, I'm always supporting my sister on my best, but the point is not just to support her, it's just to find the best way to make things work for everybody. Yes, it's true, my sister has 2 pieces of his house, work with this tax season, okay, but at the same time, Greg is a very gentle person. I spoke with him, we joke sometimes, okay, but at the same time, I respect. And at the same way we respect, we try to find the best way to make it in a good agreement so everybody lives in peace, okay? So the point here is to fix the way that nobody bothers you, because mostly that was the point.
Yeah, you can go 2 weeks without being there.
Well, I was sick.
How can you forget to put a cone
All
on
right,
2 weeks?
You can,
Stop.
yeah, let him finish, you can come back up again if
Okay.
you want to.
So just to finish, there's one thing that I was thinking, and he says about his lawn that is being damaged. That's plenty winter, which we have a lot of snow. And as everybody knows, who lives here, the snow gets hard, there's no way that you can step on the lawn because the lawn is under the snow. So there's no way to put trash, cigarette butts, or whatever is mentioned. You know, the only thing that we have to be concerned is about to have clean our sidewalks, you know. And one more thing is that we don't think that is in a very risk situation, put it this extremely, because many times when they see 1, 2, 3 cars in front of your house or maybe surrounded, nobody's going to approach to your house to steal or break something because there are no people around. That's not going to happen, I think. That's my common sense. So that's most of what I want to say. And, you know, we are here to fix any concern, any issue on our best. That's our best intention to do this now.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many people can you park on your property? How could you limit the parking to your property? Is that possible?
Limit the parking?
To your property?
Well,
Is there a way, could you limit for the volume of business that you do?
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like it's very heavy. Could you arrange your business during those months so that all the parking is on your property and off the street?
oh, of course we can do that. Of course we can do that.
Have you considered doing that so you don't become an imposition on the street and the safety associated with that?
Well, yes, we can arrange that. As long as we can, you know, find the best way to do it. And of course we have it. As I said before, people get in the house, park in the house, but some other because they are scared, they don't have the skills to back up. You know, that's sometimes why they park on the street. But we try to make it as fast as we can so they leave soon. Some of them, they just park, drop their taxes because we are going to do it. At the next day they come, they sign, they have their documents, and we are done. So it doesn't take too long to do that because we...
What I'm trying to point out is that if you have a way to limit the parking to your property,
Uh-huh.
so you don't become an imposition on the street.
Yeah, of
Why
course.
don't you just do that?
Well, yeah, that would be a good solution.
And that-
They will try to do our
That would be
best.
something that would be acceptable to you?
Sure.
That condition of approval?
Of course,
Okay.
of course. Any other question?
How many clients are in appointments at any time?
You mean during the...
I mean, literally, people aren't waiting in the living room space.
Oh, no, well,
I'm just trying to establish,
okay.
How many
Normally, we
people are
do,
actually-
in 1 hour, there are 2 clients, half hour for each one. So if we are talking from 5 to 9 o'clock, it's just 4, 8 people. Some of them, they are quicker than what we can think because they don't have too much documentation to, you know, input, so it's quick. But again, you know, it's not that much people that we have. You know, and mostly they are just personal taxes. We don't do manufacturing taxes or something like that. It's just simple taxes, what we do.
and also, what's the reasoning for appointments starting? I take it they start at 5 o'clock because people are working and they can't come earlier in the day.
Well, mostly
Why
because
do you
my
start-
sister works during the day. She has her own job.
Okay, so this is secondary. Okay.
Exactly. It's just an part-time, you know, 4 hours part-time, 5 to 9. Sometimes people beg, so we can maybe do one more, 9:30, extremely, you know. And then after, because this COVID situation, yeah, it's true. Some people, they stay because they are cleaning. You know, it's for our health and not just ours. It's for everybody that comes in the house. And that's why we schedule it, because we want just 2 people come in and get out. 2 people come in and get out. That's the best way we can do to take care of this COVID situation. You know, we try to be responsible as much as we can.
I'm just thinking if you spaced out the appointments, there'd be no overlap. You know what I'm saying? If you spaced out the appointments, there'd be no overlap. Like, I knew someone who had a barber shop in their house in West Hartford, and he left a half hour between each appointment, so he knew the street was cleared for the next appointment.
Oh, yeah, but believe me, I know about those barbershops. And some people, if their appointment is, for example, 10 o'clock in the morning, they might be there maybe sometimes half hour, 10 minutes before, Or some other people, because they are rushing, they think that because they come early, they're gonna get the appointment early, it doesn't matter what, if they tell them
I
there's.
agree, I'm just trying to figure out a way to.
Yeah,
make
no,
it-
but that's sometimes we can control the people the way they think, but we try to educate them and organize them on our best. You know, maybe they get it at the first time, maybe the second time, but we try to insist, you know, that this is the way we work, this is the way we want to organize things, and start from there.
Yeah, I think Pete was alluding to this. I'm not sure if I was real clear, but your sister mentioned nobody was really parking on her driveway. A few people were, right? Okay, but maybe you can't, maybe you gotta choose different, though. I'm trying to think, is there any reason you can't put 3 or 4 spots in your backyard? Permanent spots?
Yeah.
Not to say we wanna do that, but I'm just saying.
That's what he was mentioning,
Kind of where
yes.
you were going, put 3 or 4
Yes,
spots.
we are able to do it.
Somehow figure out a way to get people off the street, and maybe that solves their problem.
Yeah, sure.
You know, but
Yeah, we
we're
can do
not
that.
looking to create a business parking lot either, are we?
Yeah.
No, if you want to speak, please come on up here, just so that we can hear you all.
So, I'm sorry, you're also a tax preparer?
No, I help her with
He's the cone guy.
documentations.
He's the cone guy.
She's the one that does it.
I am.
Oh, okay, so you have the 2 girls, as it says in your state, your 2 assistants?
Yes, 2 persons, yes.
So there's actually 4 of you there, there's yourself?
No, it's one or the other one. I mean, sometimes they don't come in, and my
So
brother
there's
can help
never
me.
4 people working there?
No.
I'm like the backup, and sometimes, because I'm a computer technic,
Okay.
Yes.
sometimes she has issues, so I come over to fix
Help me.
things and make things work, and people don't get stuck.
One thing that you said, that it's dangerous for people to come out, back out of your driveway? Like, it's dangerous, some of the people don't have good driving skills, it's dangerous for them?
Yeah, because, everybody doesn't have the skill. I have my,
Oh,
some of
no,
my,
okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how dangerous it was to back out of their driveway.
His driveway is more open.
oh,
I'm
he's
just-
His driveway is wider than mine,
It's wider.
and he don't have the fence. It's open.
Just to follow up, I guess what I'm saying is that if you have the space in your property, you could accommodate cars. You may have to do some work.
Right.
You may not be able to do it in the current configuration. You have to widen your driveway, you may have to make some sort of turnaround. I mean, that's maybe a solution you ought to consider.
But the driveway is, I can park 8 cars in my driveway, actually. Yes, you're right, I wasn't using it, but that's gonna help for me to get be better and not create more problems with my neighbor, I will. I mean, it's not a problem.
I think what, I just want to point out, if that becomes a condition of approval, you're obligated to do that.
Of course.
And you'll have to train your customers to not park in the street. I know
Right.
you can't train people to do what they don't want to do, but somehow you have to be very clear.
And that's
with
what
your-
we say
with
from
the
now on,
people.
when they come, we say, please park in front of my house. Don't park in the next or in the other
That's
side.
another thing that people say, no, but I can go through the driveway. Well, just park in front of our house, so that's, well, it's my sister's house, in other words. That's what we try to do.
Yeah, I mean,
educate
anything
the
that can be accommodated for me to work from home would be great. I mean, I would do it. If that's the condition and you want to check on me, I mean, for what I was being told, I think even Charles went around and don't see any heavy traffic or be a busy street. So I'm not sure. I mean, like whatever you guys decide for me to operate from home, I would do it.
Would you be opposed to coming to us with a plan, a print of the parking and how you're gonna do it and what you are gonna do? You know, how you're gonna, I can't speak to how you can or can't expand your driveway or a turnaround. Would you be willing to have someone make a print and show how the parking's gonna work and what's gonna go on at your house?
Well-
And then come back to us?
Yeah, but the thing is, when I get inside my driveway,
I just
I
asked
can,
you if you would come with a formal print
sure,
from,
yeah,
that shows how many parking spaces.
I can have in my
How they're
house.
gonna turn around, what they're gonna, would you come back to us with that?
sure.
I think, yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague right now, because I might vote against this if we don't have a better parking situation. And because this is a difficult site, the driveway is narrow, they're gonna have to do some work, as one of my other colleagues said. So I think I would favor, at this point, I can say this, that maybe we table this and let them come back, and then we can work on it at another meeting.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if that's the solution, for this issue, to find a way, to park the customers inside, I think we can make things work in our best, of course. You need a plan. You can do a plan, present it to you. Of course, besides there might be just front of our house, maybe one car, two, at least.
You do have a petition here with 20-plus people that are not in favor of this.
Okay.
That's right here.
And I believe that the biggest opposition is the safety and the parking. So you gotta do something about that.
And remember, you're in a residential area.
Yeah,
So they have a right to.
Yeah, that's why I said at the beginning, our point is to don't bother anybody, try to do our best.
And I would like it spelled out in keeping with our zoning regulations, what you can and can't do for parking there, not just a drawing on what is and what isn't acceptable. And if lighting's required, I can't say. Or drainage, I can't say. But the neighbors have spoken here, it can't be ignored.
We understand.
Every 10 years, we do what's called a master plan of conservation and development. We spend weeks on this, and the home occupation section of our regulations is quite specific. You're here tonight focusing on issues where the home occupation shall not involve customers or clients arriving at the dwelling. That's part of our regulations, and that's what you're here for tonight. There's another section that states that it shall be carried on only by the inhabitants of the dwelling. You're bringing two additional employees into the picture. We're in the process of revisiting the 10-year master plan of conservation and development, okay? You've sat here tonight, listened to a hairdresser that has one client every so often, okay? I'm more inclined, again, it's for future, for continuing tonight, or tabling this, withdrawing it, or voting it up or down. I think that's where we're going, one or the other. You have a long way to go in order to satisfy these two specific points: working out of your home, working out of Ridge Road, having no other employees working with you. And that's why I asked if you would consider, like H&R Block does, as opening up an office somewhere for 3 months, or sharing your office with somebody else. I personally don't think the presentation that's given tonight from you to us is properly handled. And I would hope we would look at this, discuss this as a board, consider voting it up or down, and then having you come back with revised things versus tabling it and having it continued and continued or continued. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I would reiterate and emphasize, along with Mr. Homeki's comments, that you look at the regulations as it relates to home occupancy business, and review those policies and requirements very, very carefully, because it does seem like you're, even though I tend to favor, the initiative that you've presented in terms of trying to expand your business, your income, there does seem to be a real incompatibility with the way that you're operating when you examine it against the requirements of our regulations for home occupancy businesses. Thank you.
Most of the concern of this situation is, I see, the parking, which Mr. Gregg was mentioning. So about the business, I think she has the licenses that they require, okay? But again, if the parking situation is mostly the problem, we'll find the best way to avoid any kind of problems with our neighbor, with her neighbors, because I don't live in Wethersfield. Okay, so we'll try to find the best way to make this a solution. So, as everybody says, everybody wins. We won't bother anybody, on our list. Everybody will park, we'll present a plan as you require, and make things work, and principally, Greg will be gratefully a solution that we can give.
I just want to maybe reiterate a little bit what my colleagues have said. It's not just the parking.
What more else?
Okay, there are regulations about home occupancy businesses. They're written down, you can talk to Denise, and she could show them to you clearly. If you want to be within regulation, these are the things you have to do. If you meet all those things, then we're almost obligated, we could always say no, but you're within regulation, I think you'd get a favorable response from us. It seems to me that you will not be able to meet some of those. Look at them carefully. From what I understand, you'll probably be able to meet some and not meet others.
Thank you.
You may want to consider modifying, when you have people come. It was suggested putting time between them so that the flow, there's things you can do to mitigate. Even though you may not be able to meet some of them, you may have a plan to mitigate those so there's less impact to the neighbors. I think you have to show to us that you understand those regulations, you understand what you can do and say, I will do this, and say parking is one. I will change my parking so that there'll be no on-street parking. That's something you can do, and you can offer that to us. There may be others that you may not be able to do exactly, but you may say, I can't do it exactly, but I will do something to mitigate the situation. And that's the plan I'd like to see. It's not just a sketch of the parking, it's point by point to our regulation. I think that's what the commission is asking you to do.
All right, thank you.
George?
Yeah, Denise and Rich, should we deny this and have them come back with an application that's appropriate? Or should we handle it?
Well, let's
You want to
finish
table it? We can do
well,
that.
let's finish hearing from the public, then we can
Yeah,
talk about
okay.
what it is we'd like to do.
Right.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Yes.
Is there anybody else in the public that wants to say
Thank you.
anything? You had your hand up.
I know there's like 3 other similar businesses that are like this. On Maple Street, the dentist office. There's a barber shop and a hair salon across from Burger King. They all have separate entrances, and they all have parking that has been accommodated for people. This does not have that. If you have 2 employees and 2 clients, like they say, where are the other 6 or 7 cars? They're there, but they're saying they're not there. There's 10 at a time. That's why everybody's against this. And the cone should not be his problem. She's the homeowner. She just doesn't do it. Shouldn't be his responsibility. Should be hers. And she ignores it. So you can't, 4 cars to 10 cars, there's 6 missing. She's not admitting it. It's a big turnover, and it's gotten bigger every year. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Yes?
I just have one question. Will be, whatever your decision is tonight, there will be some additional hearing or something else will happen. Will we as neighbors be notified again?
Well, if we just continue the hearing,
Yeah.
you won't get a separate notice. You'll hear tonight whether it's going to be 2
Okay.
weeks or 4 weeks
Yeah.
from now. Or you can call the planning office and tell you if the application is denied, then they'd have to reapply if they wanted to, and, then you'd get all the notifications again. But if we just continue the hearing that is open right now,
Yeah.
you won't get a separate notice, but you will hear tonight what it is that is going to happen.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I've heard a couple of different suggestions as to what to do.
Motion closed.
Should we close the meeting? You want to
Well,
close the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, you,
Yeah, I got you, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, you had suggested keeping the hearing open pending delivery of, a site plan. Tony had kind of said, let's just close it and vote on what's in front of us. So I think that's, those are the options that are.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll vote on it now because they didn't have to withdraw and then they have to come back. Like my fellow commissioner said, it's not just the parking, it's a whole host of things. They really need to have
Exactly.
every point by point by point, because right now it doesn't pass on several points.
If we continue this meeting, I mean, they have 2 weeks, right, to prepare? Would that be our next meeting? Or is it a month from now?
Well,
It depends.
that was something we were probably going to talk about later. I mean, there's nothing else that is on the agenda for the first, I guess it's the 2nd of August. So, it would probably be the second meeting night in August, which would be like the 16th or something. If we continue.
I don't think they would be ready for the next meeting anyways, within 2 weeks
Okay,
to prepare that plan.
I think if it was December, it would be a little bit more urgency, but it's July. She's got some time to.
The tax season doesn't start till January, so there's a little bit of time for them to come back to the drawing boards if they need to. reapply.
The only thing I'm thinking of, they're gonna have to do some site work, so, they may need the time to work on that before December. That's the point.
Tom?
I tend to think that if we don't close the hearing, but basically continue it until, a meeting in August, that'd give the applicant time to consider its application, possibly withdraw it, and then upon more consultation with the planning office and planning among themselves, and further developing their plans and articulating their intent, they could come in with a future application without any prejudice emanating from this hearing, and be able to present something that could be favorably voted upon by this commission. As it does stand right now, I would be reluctant to consent to an approval as things now stand.
I'd be in favor to continue. I agree with Tom. I mean, if they're not ready in a month's time, they can always move it to the next meeting. It'll be up to them. And it would be a prejudice if we vote tonight. So I'd be in favor of continuing the meeting.
Well, do you want to make a motion then?
I make a motion that we continue the meeting to the August timeframe.
16th? Is that what it is?
August 16th, you said?
I'm just trying to guess.
I'm gonna be here
It's the 16th, yeah.
You said what?
She won't be here.
I won't be here in the States. I'm gonna be out of the country.
Okay. When's the?
Can I, maybe if I can counter yours, like, I like the idea of starting fresh.
Me too.
Triggering the notification to the public, since there's opinions. I like to force that.
I agree.
So I think a number of us kind of agree with that. I understand the prejudice, I get that, but I don't know, that's just like a made-up thing. It's, there is no prejudice, it's just that we wanted to do it
But you
correctly.
can say, I make a motion to deny.
Well, I mean, if the application is different than what's here tonight, it wouldn't be a matter
Right.
of, you know,
It'd
not
be
being able to
a really
revisit it.
completely new application.
I'm expecting something completely new.
We'll make them
Continue to
apply
not-
as such, you know, complete, with a complete package, basically.
Right.
Right.
And if you can't do it in August, you do it in September.
Right.
That would be the next 2 weeks after that.
Because then we're on the timer if we don't give them.
Would somebody make a motion, please?
We gotta close the meeting first. We gotta-
Peter made a motion, doesn't it? We don't have a second on it yet.
Yeah, we don't have a
I got a
second.
second.
No, he
Well,
made
you
a
don't even know
motion
what the
to,
motion is, why'd you
What's
second
the
it?
motion?
The motion is to
Motion
continue the
was to
meeting.
continue.
Peter made a motion
Don't
to
have a second
continue.
on the continuation.
Well, no, we were gonna continue it, but she's not available at the time that I
Right.
said, so,
I'm gonna make a motion to close the meeting.
And I'll second that
Second.
motion.
all right.
Second motion.
Close the hearing?
Yes.
Close the hearing.
All right. Any discussion?
Would it be possible to ask the applicants at this point in time as to whether or not they now wish to withdraw their application?
I'm making a motion to close the hearing.
We've already seconded.
Closed.
We've already seconded.
We're discussing the motion.
That's it.
Tom's just discussing the motion.
I'm discussing the motion.
I guess we could ask them
I'd
that
like to
prior to voting
present,
on
yeah,
that.
before we vote on it, I would like to ask the applicant if they wish at this time to withdraw their application.
Do you want to, knowing that we're closing the public hearing, would you rather withdraw the application or have us proceed? With the understanding that you can come back once you have the plans and so forth?
So we have to put the zoning sign in front of the house again, right from the start?
Yeah.
Do it all over again?
And I have to pay the fees again for the application?
We can waive that.
Yeah, we can vote to waive the fees if we
That's
vote to
one
do-
thing I wanted to bring up, is make sure that we weren't gonna trigger that all over again. But I think what we wanna do is, like, right now, we're about to vote this down and say no. But rather than have that on any record, we'd rather give you a chance to just say, oh, forget it, we're gonna come back, we're not gonna pay again, we're just gonna reapply, and then you don't have anything in the history of being denied. Sound good? Yeah, so how do we do that? I don't know how to
So,
formalize.
so how do we formalize that there's no fee when they come back?
We simply
we
amend,
can-
we can
well-
amend the
Well, we can
motion.
close the hearing, accept the withdrawal of the application, waive the fee on the resubmittal, provided that it is done within 45 days. Because, I mean, this is an enforcement thing, so I don't want to just let it go, you know,
Right.
rolling down the river.
That makes sense, yeah.
Although I'm not so concerned about the enforcement at this point in time, since the business isn't really in operation during the summer months.
It
It's
still
a tax
exists,
season.
doesn't matter. If she has one, the business is existing, whether she sees anybody or not. So we can't all of a sudden, once again, just decide to forget about the enforcement action. So I think to Rich's point, we have to stay on task.
On consideration, I agree.
Okay.
All right, so the motion is to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So I guess the next motion would be to accept the withdrawal of the application and to waive the fee for resubmittal on the condition that it's filed within 45 days.
Motion so made, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay.
While we're in discussion prior to the vote, I would just again restate the fact that B3 and D1 are quite large hurdles for them to overcome within the regulations, just for the minutes.
No, I agree. I mean, and I think, you know, if we think back to 2 long weeks ago, you know, in our kind of discussion over a potential home occupation, and then there was another one, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago that was kind of similar professional services that had people coming on site and parking of customers and so forth. You know, it is not a layup by any means.
Tony, could you remind me what those were, B321? What,
It's the customers arriving to the dwelling and the clients, I mean, the employees on premises.
okay.
The employees have to live, occupy the site.
We have a motion.
Yes, we do. To accept the withdrawal of the application with the conditions. Yeah,
I seconded the motion, he made the motion.
right.
You made the motion, he said,
Well,
yeah, that's the one.
I said, I think we need a motion to do. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. So to answer the question from the public, there will be notice of the next proceeding.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Same as last time. I don't know.
If they come back before.
Yeah.
If we receive
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break because I think we need Denise to do the next two things and I don't want to rush her.
Hey, how's it going? All is well. Good for you.
I saw you walking on the green the other day, I peeped to you, but you didn't look my way.
I know. You know, you saw me. Where the hell were you? Way back in your damn driveway? Practically down in the public works garage?
I was out of the driveway driving by you.
Hey, you didn't invite me in.
I'm going somewhere.
Oh, you're going somewhere, yeah.
You can just call it. Nothing gets destroyed.
Nothing in the file?
Nothing gets destroyed.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
He's triggering.
This is the actual copy. This is the one that's on the table that you signed. It's not all the land, it's the airspace above the land. Right. There's some text there that words it. Selling the land.
I need somebody to do my taxes.
Town of Wethersfield got this. Top of the trees,
No, I mean, you know, a lot of times they're different, you know, there's some of them that, well, I mean, in our regulations, if there's some cars, you know, once you start.
This slope up above the land. One thing
Right.
One thing you don't very well is that they're allowed to maintain that. Yes, they're allowed to keep that space clear from your trees. No, they don't want to. They want to trim the trees. 15 trees. Now, the one that shows the projections is. One thing that I don't agree with right here is that if there is a tree that projects into the zone, they're allowed to cut it down to the ground level. That's what, yeah, they're doing it in the wall. The one that's causing the so they should delete that.
But I thought the guys in the green vests with the flashlights.
This application. Yeah, I know. It says in the actual legal document. It also says at the end, that someone else would raise a concern about, is you're gonna, if the airport were to close, and become developed into something, marina, open space, whatever you want to do, right? The town signing this easement to prevent they then decide that these rights become void. If the airport ceases to be used as an airport. You have like exhibit A and B. Yeah.
You go to sleep at Baba Manor.
Tell you, I work have a home business, I'm not coming to.
You put cones on the road.
There's not a lot.
I'm starting to hear She's got 2 minutes. She's trying to do 3 hours. 10 people, 3 hours.
I think it was this.
Disgusting.
I know.
And he says,
Look where I am today.
All the rules and all the conditions, and then Tony just, he said, I went to tangle with something, okay?
Still on all this time while we're walking around, on camera?
Everything is usually something.
Is that our first withdrawal ever? From the table. We've seen other people. It's interesting when it evolved. I thought it would have been easier to cut it off.
I have a friend that lives in Massachusetts. We were talking about the same subject. And his brother-in-law outfits the warehouses that are growing the marijuana. He's making a fortune because these warehouses.
That'll be your match. That was the office.
That was just like a medium-sized HVAC. He's backed up. They're building warehouses all over Massachusetts. It's all controlled. All HVAC controlled. No bugs, no pesticides, all organic with lights. You lose 400 pounds.
It's like a hospital.
I tell you, my grapes are doing good because it's been so dry. My orchard is great. The grapes are really growing well. There's no disease in them. Last year was the best. Last year,
Good seeing you here. What? When you showing up?
Well, it's good to be seen.
I wasn't sure
A little
you
bit of
existed.
George.
But it had to eliminate somebody like you.
A little bit of me goes a long way.
The last 2 hours, I'm looking at the sign. Careful with your wishes.
Exactly.
Rub a pen.
Lord Charles.
You were sitting there like.
Isn't Tony average 10 and 12 inches, 10 and 14 inches a year moisture. Yeah, it relied on irrigation from.
Yep, okay.
It originated
Do we have anything other than the pictures? Okay. Yeah, because the email you sent me talked about an attachment. Oh, all right.
Why, yes. Did you park there? Oh, in your car.
Because when I walk across there,
Same as this?
You want, hey, listen.
shotgun.
You go across my lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, that,
Yes, absolutely. Get over to the park.
they're reconfiguring the phases.
I can't believe it. It's an outrage.
You know, you still own it. You thought you did. Come on.
Take out the cul-de-sac.
What else?
You're gonna be something plant there in Omaha, right outside Omaha.
Well, I grew up in South Bluff, which is about
All right.
450 miles.
Let us return to business. I think we can do items 4.1 and 4.2 together. Frank DiBacco modification to Phase 1, Phase 2, and bond set for Phase 2. We have pictures of the phases in our packet. There was an email or a memo from Derek today talking about the changes and setting the bond at $570,000.
Hello, Frank DiBacco from CCC Construction in reference to Reservoir Estates. Finally getting moving on the overall development in the end here. So we've pretty much sold out on Phase 1 and we're looking to construct Phase 2. So we went through and we met with Derek, Denise, and Jack was with us, and we went through and tried to resolve all the issues, and we got Derek's memo, and I do have a few comments that I would like to go through on them. So if we had a few minutes, you want me to read through the comments and go through them? So when we sat down.
Yeah, because we don't have Derek's memo, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's one copy of it here, so if you want to.
All right, so.
Or is it sitting up here?
George, you've been here too long.
Okay. Yeah, you were.
I think I was 12 when I came the first time.
When we first approved the time.
When we had subdivisions.
Yeah.
So I think we have it, but it's dated
Okay,
today.
yeah, it was, all right, yeah, it was
It's just
some,
not when you walk in.
yeah, it was one of the things sitting here that I haven't read. Okay.
So the application proposed to transfer development of lots 6, 7, and 8, installation of drainage system in Stella Drive, and construction of drainage swale near 1860 Reservoir from Phase 3 to Phase 2 construction, and also to extend Luca Lane to a dead-end location at the northerly limit of the project. If approved by the commission, we recommend the following. So this is Derek's letter. So item A is require construction of a temporary cul-de-sac and provide the associated easement in favor of the town area shown in the north end of Luca Lane on the approved subdivision plans, which shall remain until such time the road extended in the future. This will facilitate plowing operations, refuse collections, and emergency vehicle access and egress within the public right-of-way. So we sat and we talked about item A, and we asked if we can eliminate the two wings of the circle, because the road ends 70 feet from the property is the last lot before I enter my next phase of development. The other 13 lots that I have after we finish Phase 3 of this one. So I'm just asking, and Derek told me, and I think Denise can back me up when we had Jack here, that if we got the approval from the fire marshal that he didn't need the cul-de-sac, we can bypass that. So we did get the approval from the fire marshal, and Derek is still asking that we put that in. So I'm confused on what direction we're supposed to go, other than he would like to have it. And as for the trucking, turning, and fire egress, again, within 70 to 100 feet, the road ends from the intersection that's currently proposed to be, I think it's Stella Drive comes
So you're
next.
asking for this extension out there?
No, so on your packet, it's the one on the left, on the bottom left-hand corner, so let me pull that up real quick on these plans here. So this is the overall Phase 2. So Phase 1 was the first 6 on this corner.
Right.
Whoops, I hit the wrong button there. So Phase 2 is what's in blue here that we're trying to accomplish. through here, and then because of the drainage system and the flow of gravity, we are going to have to partially construct Stella Drive to get through to the drainage in the back, so that we can build the area back here for water collection. So we're building the water, the sewer, the storm drainage, and then tying the storm drainage in through down here. So what we asked originally, if we can eliminate the little wings on this side of the road, because the road to this one is within, from here to here is I think 50 feet, 60 feet, and then the road ends to get to this driveway next.
And the
So
fire marshal's okay with that?
And the fire marshal agreed with it. I think we sent a copy of that email to Derek.
Okay.
So they were okay with it. And the trucks typically, when they come to plow a cul-de-sac, they can't turn in the cul-de-sac with the plow. They're gonna come up and they're just gonna go boom, 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 and leave. They're not gonna even swing around in there typically. It's not large enough for that, if I remember correctly, because we have on the other phases here and the phase that's here, we had to provide snow shelves that were granted as easements so that when they do plow, they can place the snow and leave, because they can't swing.
Is this a permanent thing or a temporary thing?
Well, I own half of the land behind it here. So we own the other 7 lots out of the 13 that we eventually want to get to after we build this. So our phase is phase 2, this one's going to be phase 3, and then I'm going to come back and redo phase 4, which is the other 13 lots in the back. So we're trying to go through them all at once, but we have to go schematically as the economy goes and things
And
start.
what's that distance again from the intersection back?
From, these lots are 99 feet of frontage.
Yep.
So put it halfway in the middle from here to here, call it 50, 60 feet,
That's all.
and that's it. And then the cul-de-sac would start.
So Derek wanted you to put a cul-de-sac after those 50 feet?
Yes. A temporary cul-de-sac.
Temporary.
So, just so I have it clear, so what Derek has outlined here
Yep.
and what you're presenting there are different.
I am presenting what the fire marshal approved. But yes, on the original subdivision, it
The fire
showed,
marshal side on it is
Yep.
not in front of me.
yep,
What Derek is depicting here and what that picture is there, apples, orange, correct?
correct.
Okay.
So the difference is, as I'll show you again, is that there's a little circular part here and a little circular part here to make the full lollipop. And we're just asking to eliminate the 2 wings. Which eventually, when we build the road, we eliminate them anyway. Because we're gonna connect from here all the way down to, I think it's Bainbury or Witten, what's the?
Yeah.
Wittenberry?
Whippoorwill.
Whippoorwill is where we're gonna eventually end up. Okay? So that's item,
And the fire marshal's not concerned because you got partially built Stella Drive where you can turn?
so we have not built Stella Drive yet, that's gonna be phase 3, but we are building part of Stella Drive because we've gotta put the sewer, the water, and the electrical, and the drainage system in. So there's a little piece of this that's gotta get built, because we've gotta put the utilities underneath it, because then we gotta, otherwise we'd have to come back in
How would the fire
here.
trucks get in and out of there?
So the fire truck's gonna do a K-turn, and then
That's
leave.
what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
you do a K-turn at the little nub of Stella Drive that you.
Yep. And to do a full turn on the end on the temporary, I don't know if the fire trucks, the big ones can make it. The smaller ones definitely can, the big ones, I don't know.
I don't have the memo from the fire marshal, so I can't tell you.
I do. Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
I'm just going off with that.
Yeah, so we sent that to
K-turn
Derek.
on a fire truck.
Yeah, hold on one second. I sent that to Derek and he sent it back, so let me just find that.
I got it.
So while you're
No,
looking
we're
at
gonna
that,
go
sorry.
through them one at a time. Give me a second. Denise, I think you were on that email also, weren't you?
I saw that you were going to bring it up during the meeting, but
Yeah.
I have not seen anything from the fire marshal.
There was a later email from Derek saying, with respect to Mike McCricky regarding the temporary cul-de-sac, that he was okay with removing it, but Derek said, Jack, that's fine, but my recommendation to the commission still stands for reasons other than fire department access, since at this point, we don't know when, if or when the road will be extended.
That's
Correct.
kind of what I was assuming, is that from an engineering perspective, the design will be whole in this temporary condition, assuming, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
something happens and phase 3 never happens or something like that. I think as an engineer, that's kind of how people tend to think, is like,
Oh,
we want the project to be whole, and then if we do phase 3, awesome. If we don't, we still have something that looks like a complete project as opposed to something that clearly looks like a paper road that never got constructed. I think that's kind of it's not a, can this be accommodated by refuse or fire? It's, does it look good? I think is the concern, and, just in case phase 3 never happens. I think that's Derek's position.
Well, that would be phase 4.
Sorry.
Yeah. Phase 3 is going off to the right, and I'll be talking to Derek probably in another month or two about that one.
Look at my screen, that's what you're looking at.
So phase 4 is what's in the back, which that paper road would eventually go. Phase 3 turns to the right, where that cul-de-sac is. So there's going to be a K-turn turnaround. That's going to be established regardless, because I have to build 20 or 30 feet to the right, so they can at least make that K-turn, even if that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, last 5 lots doesn't get approved on Stella Drive, doesn't get built. But my wife is in the back, and she's already negotiating 2 other homes on the back of that property, so I may be back here in 8 weeks, who knows, to pull the rest of the development and finish. So that's the reasoning for the first question on phase 1, but the question I think I was upset with is, why did you send me on a wild goose chase, and if I got the approval from the fire marshal, then deny me?
Me? What?
In general.
Yeah.
But am I correct? That's what he told me to do, and we did, followed directions pretty clearly.
I'm not sure if, if his comment was that if the fire marshal was okay, that he didn't have that concern.
Okay.
So.
Because that's the way it was understood, because we went down that direction. It wasn't just me, I had Jack with me. So we wanted to be crystal clear on that one. Oops. Where did my, oh boy. So that was one comment that I wanted to see if we can
What is your
relook.
objection with putting the temporary? Is it cost, or why wouldn't you just do it?
It's a cost thing, and it's something that we don't think it's going to be there very long.
Well, I understand that, but it's basically cost, right?
It's cost associated for a temporary purpose, yeah.
Okay.
No argument. That's the whole point. So that's item A on Derek's email. Item B, as he states, is revise the note. I'm assuming it says on the plan to reflect lots that will be constructed during phase 2 and phase 3, and add a note stating that phase 2 construction will only include installation of the drainage system within the phase 3 limits of Stella Drive. I thought these plans portray that. All the cost estimates that we have done and the values that's attached to this chart reflect that. Again, why am I adding more expense to clarify the drawings that were already pre-approved 6 or 5 years ago and are still relevant today? Is item B. Item C states on his letter to revise the plan to provide current revision date and submit a revised full-size phase plan to the engineering division for our records. Okay, so that one we've already done when we filed the first subdivision, and we did the whole thing. It's been phased out when we first designed it. I'm applying and confirming what I've already done. And in the end, when this is phase 2 is complete, I have to, by right, turn in an as-built. Wouldn't that as-built be sufficient enough? Because that's going to be here in 10 to 12 weeks. Once you give me the approval and I can start this road, the road should take no more than 8 to 10 weeks. So we're not asking for a significant amount of time. We want to get started. I have nothing left to sell. I need property. So we are looking to move. And then the last one is, if the proposed revision to the construction phasings are approved, we recommend that the commission require the applicant to provide a performance bond of $570,000 in a form of a surety for phase 2 construction. If the proposed phasing plans are not approved, the applicant must submit a revised bond estimate for staff review, which reflects the original phase 2 limits and will require commission approval at a later date. And he's asking for $570,000. The quotes that we have given him and the numbers that we have shown, the whole project to finish this road is less than $400,000. He's $170,000 more than what we need. And I don't know how to combat that, because he's using unit prices that are, From where, I don't know, other than his own sources and his own vendors that he uses in town. But again, this project is 10 weeks for me. And I've given him the quotes of the pavers and the quotes of the contractors who I've already awarded the contracts to, and it's under $400,000. Why do I have to overpay? And his comment was, what if I go belly up? I've been here 6 years. I'm still standing.
Ever run into this? Ever run into this in your work? This
Oh, yeah.
kind of thing?
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know, we're gonna do the as-built, we're gonna be doing different things different ways. I know that I can't get a CO or a building permit without his approval. And I know that I have to have the road in a binder situation before I can legally sell anything according to my attorney. We're doing the same thing 2 different ways. How much protection does one need?
So what happens, like, can we approve and then we say, like, because we say, like, contingent on the approval of town staff, and then are we kind of throwing him into a buzzsaw? Or
Well, I mean,
would our approval be, like, the decision?
I think we would need to be a little more definite than subject to town staff approval, because basically what Derek has provided is his conditions, and his estimate of the bond.
Right.
If we approve it and say, go back and argue with Derek some more.
End up like boondoggle.
I don't really think that gets us anywhere. I mean,
Right.
The short answer is either these conditions are acceptable or not. Because I'm not gonna second guess, I can't second guess, the unit prices on all of these things. They're probably more than what somebody in the business would put down, because you've got relationships with vendors and, they know there's a phase 3 and a phase 4. And, he may be getting them off some other list. And the whole point of the bonding is, if he decides, I'm sick of building houses, what does the town have to be able to rely on to finish the work? And if they can finish the work for $400,000, it's not like it's a, $170,000 windfall for the town because we have a bond. The bond only covers the cost. And, he's built in the contingencies and interest and all the things that, you usually build in. So I don't know what we can do about it other than, say yes or no. And if we say no, then we'll be talking about this again a month from now, and he'll be really angry because, he wants to be done with this. Does anybody else see it differently?
I want to reflect back on the tree hugging situation with boondoggle.
I don't.
I'm confused at that point, and again, I'm confused now. This memo is dated July 19th, came in the 11th hour. I don't know if the fire marshal's talking to the town engineer. As a volunteer and a board member, I would hope these things would be shared and vented through all the department heads, and even with the new town manager coming in. We have an applicant that seems to dot the i's, cross the t's, references the CO. I'm not an engineer, but as an appraiser for over 40 years, I think the presentation was very detailed and very thorough. The facts are in front of us. Recommendations are recommendations, or are they mandates? I'm reading through our engineer's memo, and I'm looking at recommendations, but
Yeah, they're recommendations. I mean, we can say, no, we only need 400,000 for the bond.
done.
Yeah. Or, we don't need a temporary cul-de-sac. I mean, that's something that we could, reasonable people can disagree over that. Do we need to have the plans marked up to show phase 2 as being approved tonight? I think that makes sense. But, yeah, these are recommendations of our professional staff,
We've always given 100% support, I think.
We have.
I think we all agree on that.
I mean, sometimes if staff is here, we may inquire, push back and so forth.
Which we've done.
Sometimes previous staff has been wrong.
Are you suggesting maybe you go back and to Derek and ask him if he wants to revise it? No?
Well, you probably won't, and that'll, I think, create a bigger hardship for the applicant than putting these conditions on, unless you see it differently.
No, Derek is pretty clear that he ain't budging.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to.
On the financial side of things, he wasn't gonna budge.
Yeah, I mean, I want to allow you to do what you need to do.
I just want to be practical and realistic and not just always be one way. There's always solutions and always medium ground. And we've always had that relationship with this town. With this memo, I don't believe I have that.
Okay.
I'm personally uncomfortable with overriding Derek's recommendations, because we're gonna get into a little bit of what happened before. Derek must have some strong opinions on why he thinks it's more money, or why a temporary cul-de-sac is necessary. Perhaps it's to finalize the condition in case something happens, as you were saying before. I don't know, but, without him here, I just feel uncomfortable writing his recommendations, personally. Would have been nice if he was here, we could talk to him.
I also have to rely on, you're an expert and he's an expert, but he's our expert, so I have to, and that's his memo, so
So let me ask a question. Can I ask a quick question? Sure. I filed a bond. I decided to start the road. Then I decide not to finish. I still own the property. We can't pull the bond if I choose not to finish, if nobody's living there.
Right.
What are we really arguing over?
If it's partially built.
And nobody's living there, I can legally stop. The requirement is that bond is there to allow somebody to move in, which is the wear course, so they can get access and everybody can get there while I'm still doing the final coat. That's the main purpose of the bond. I have to have everything done before anybody even moves in. Legally, your regulations state that. I can stop anytime I want and not let anybody move in. And the bond just sits.
All right, so you don't want us to vote on this tonight?
I want to vote on it, but I want to be fair.
I wish Derek were here.
Me too.
Yeah.
Your argument, you're saying, though, you don't think you need a bond at all then, right?
No, I think you need some protection for something.
Yeah.
I just don't think you need to be 125% or 140% over the
Yeah, but
value.
the whole issue is, our guy thinks it is 125%, and you don't know that, which I understand, but so
Yeah.
so what do we do?
I
Stick our
mean,
necks
build
out?
in 15 or 20% on top of what we really think it is, just because of the cost of things and kind of a contingency.
Do I want to resolve it today? Absolutely. I want to get started. I need to get started. We've been waiting a long time to get it.
The way I see it, if we agree with Derek's recommendations, it's probably gonna fly tonight. Without it, I don't know, I think there's some reluctance here. So it comes down to cost, I understand. Cost for the temporary, cost for the extra bond money. What's important to you? I mean, what's your thinking?
Well, there's 4 items in there overall.
Yeah, I think the two big ones though are the cul-de-sac and the bond. That'll cost you money, I understand that.
The other 2 items, to have another set of plans, change a date and refile, what's the point of that? You've already done this, it's already been approved. And
Yeah,
then
but
you're
you're
going to be
changing
getting
the
an as-built.
phasing, so I think.
No, I'm not changing phasing. This is the phase.
It's different.
No.
All right, okay.
If you, I have the plans here, if you want to see them, I'll bring
I'm
them up.
looking at what I'm looking at, and they're
Yeah,
different.
no, if you want, let me
Don't
get the
bother.
plans. I'll get the plans and I'll show you phase 2. It has not changed.
Okay.
I mean, if it hasn't changed, then, you know, you have to bring an as-built, I understand your point, so I'm okay with that. And what was the fourth one?
Uh,
The bond.
No, the bond was one, the
Bond,
the temporary construction on the cul-de-sac,
two,
the phasing on the, for new plans,
yeah, and the fourth one.
and the fourth one was revisions on the date change for full-size plans for the engineering office for our records, which you have the records. I don't understand no information's changing on the, from the old 4 years ago.
But why? Maybe I'm.
So what if we,
Why does phase 2 look different in this that we were given today than the packet? I guess that's my confusion. I'm not saying I mind.
No, we
Two
highlighted
different
it.
phase 2s in here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right.
The phase 2 that.
They're both in?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, never mind, sorry.
We need to do
I
the
thought-
drainage for phase 2, otherwise it won't go nowhere.
Sorry, that was a confusion.
Yeah, and also 3 lots have been moved from phase 3 to phase 2.
So it is
Walk away.
different? I don't have that extra in the packet there, so I.
You don't
I'm
have
not sure
what?
what you're saying.
So I think
Yeah, it's
lot
in the middle
7.
of the packet.
Yeah.
No, that's here.
Which one, what are the changes here in terms of this versus that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's why that's in phase 3, I guess.
Yeah, it's the upper 3 lots, and
There's no geometric changes, there's only boundary changes?
The MDC, we always had to put the water and sewer up to the edge of the property. So when we did it originally, MDC told us we had to go up to the end. So for constructing it and building it, or finishing it. So the limits of phase 2 have added another 100 feet. Because I have to build it all to get it there. Because the blow off, the way they've designed it, is after that.
oh, okay.
Difference between
So it's sort of out of my control because the utility companies are a lot larger than I am. And, you're not going to argue and you're not going to win with every source of MDC.
And an unaccountable monopoly is bigger than we are?
Yeah, so we conceded to MDC, we conceded to Eversource, and we're at the end of the property until we get to phase 4. And that's their requirement.
Okay.
Hence the change.
All right, I think we see what we have here. I don't know, does somebody want to make a motion just so that we can move?
Do it to close the hearing.
It's not a public hearing.
what's the number?
Is that the only motion you know how to make?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application with 2 of the conditions from Derek, 2 being the temporary cul-de-sac is to be constructed as originally laid out, and that the bond be increased to the recommendation of Derek, which is what, 570?
All right.
So Pete, so you're saying, as Derek described it in item 1, sub-item A?
Yeah.
A and D.
Yeah,
Required
yeah.
temporary cul-de-sac.
So you're doing 1A and
1A
2,
and 2.
but not 1B and 1C?
Right, I think we could just forego the plans and the extra cost of doing that.
Man, I would really love to not do sacrificial pavement for that 1A. I don't know. I realize that's territory where we're going against the town expert, but I mean, you're talking about building a cul-de-sac where there's gonna be a yard in the future,
Yes.
right? So how much of that bituminous, subbase, curbing, all that has to get hogged out before you can then bring in some new material, builds the yard that's already not there, you're gonna have to bring in some material anyway, but I don't know, that just seems unfortunate to me.
I mean, that's what we do. We've been doing it for 40 years. I mean, we could change it, but that's
How
what
many
we
square
do.
foot are those houses down there?
That's probably where we got the 170,000 extra for the bond.
Some of it isn't.
So they're between 2,600 square feet and 3,700 square feet.
So 37 is your biggest?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're gonna have an aerial attack on those houses.
Huh?
You're gonna have a 100-foot tower ladder on the end of that road.
But the tower ladder can't go more than 30 feet before he can't go any further.
I'm sorry?
That ladder, that truck, that road is only 60 feet long. And I think they gotta be a certain distance from there anyway, because they can't get into the property, and all the other trucks are gonna be stacked way behind them.
I'm not really familiar with how it works.
Yeah. I watched one, it was neat.
There's a,
I have a cul-de-sac.
okay.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
If I'm operating the tower ladder, and one of the houses is framed and the other one's finished, I would surely hope if I was living in a house that's finished, I had a tower ladder there.
Okay.
In the cul-de-sac.
Okay, that's what I thought.
How long of a wheelbase is that ladder rack? He won't make that turn, you know that, right?
Depends on which one it is, but
And
that's
who's-
just my
and
opinion.
who's driving.
That's just my opinion.
Peter, your motion is 2 out of 4.
Right.
Right.
The
Is there-
the cul-de-sac and the bonding stay, the other two, which is the updating of the drawings, we can forego that. That's
Yeah, but
extra
do we want to
cost.
mention, B and C, that we want the drawings updated as final at the end, though, right?
Those will be as-built.
I have to give
Well,
you
the
as-bills at the
as-bills,
I
end.
that's a
understand, as long as, yeah.
That's a requirement, he's gonna
Okay,
have to
fair
give us
enough.
as-bills.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Your application came in on the 11th? Does that sound right? You applied for tonight's hearing on the 11th?
I
That sound
think,
about right?
I think it was Friday, that week, the deadline due date, second, third, I don't know what the date was.
This is
We
the
met
11th.
a week before the deadline, and then we tried to get the check in the date before. So I think we started this back in June, and I think the application was filled out for, no, I don't even remember, was that the 9th, Denise? The 8th?
The stamping on it says the 11th.
So it was around the 8th, 9th, 5th. When did you meet with the fire marshal? About the same time?
The fire marshal was the same day when we met with Denise and Derek in the town manager's office.
It's only a week.
That's okay.
To get a memo again today on July 19th?
Everybody's all over the place, everybody's busy, it's crazy.
That's not out of hand. It's a week.
Thanks.
All
Sure.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is the CAA clearance easement. Do we have any, we got some correspondence about this.
Rich, can you tell me again why we are talking about this tonight? Refresh my memory.
It's an interest in land that the town is being asked to convey. So under 824, it has to come to us to determine, essentially consistency with the plan of conservation and development and whether it's an
824.
appropriate use of municipal resources. We're not talking about money, we're not talking about,
No,
trying to limit it.
The reference of 824 is what I was looking for.
Yep, that's what it
Good,
is.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of pieces of correspondence about it, and I appreciate the deputy mayor coming up and filling us in last time, but we don't have anybody else from the town who
Who knows what's going
chooses
on?
to illuminate us about this.
So I did reach out to the airport authority to see if I could get a representative to make a presentation and answer questions. I only heard back from them this afternoon. So they were only inquiring as to the date of our next meeting. So I did not get any additional information from them in the meantime. I did, however, have some extensive conversations with the advisory committee, Cindy Greenblatt and Judy Keene, and I think that they have some information to share with the commission tonight.
Okay. Do you want to come up? even though it's not a public hearing, obviously, you're welcome to speak. Just please give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Greenblatt, and I live at 35 Broad Street, but I'm here really as a representative of the Hartford Brainerd Noise Advisory Committee, and I am the Chamber of Commerce representative on that committee, and I've served on that committee since 2015 when I took over for Charlie Hart, who retired. So I have actually followed this process almost from the very beginning, because that coincides with when the airport began its or at least let the public know that it was in desiring to cut trees and kind of take care of some issues that existed on its perimeters. And of course, Wethersfield is seriously close to the airport. I think it's 700 feet from the end of the runway. So we meet quarterly, and we are very much aware of what's going on the airport grounds. And when I saw that this came up, I went back and listened to your meeting, and I could hear that there were several questions that members had that I thought I might have answers for. And so I reached out to the town planner, and I asked Denise if she'd like to see a compilation of some of the documents that have existed over the years, because somebody asked were there ever any studies or anything done, and she said yes, that would be fine. And so what I did, and I think that she shared with you, were links to all of the documents. So it starts out with a master plan of development, which talks about their desire to expand in our direction. And then it goes into an environmental analysis, and I thought that was a very significant one, because I can't remember who, because on television it's very small, but somebody said, was there ever a study done? And in the environmental analysis, it states clearly that no study was ever done on anything in Wethersfield, because nothing south of Folly Brook or east of 91 was ever considered in the original master plan. So that's since changed, and I also included that 2020 letter where they indicated that a firm had identified trees in Wethersfield south of Folly Brook that might in fact be obstructions, and so I included that. And then I indicated which meetings you might want to look back on minutes to that the town council held, and Councilor Mazzarella did a great job, summarizing that. And then there was a license agreement that was signed at one of those meetings, and that agreement gave the airport authority the right to take care of any and all obstructions on the property in question. And so I was surprised when this was here, when this came back again. This is a little bit of a different ask on their part. It's called an abrogation easement, and I think I talked to the councilor a little bit earlier, so I think there's enough of a gray area that would certainly have to be looked at, hopefully by someone who has skills and is legally familiar with all that a navigation easement implied. But what I was really here to update you on is the new law that was just put into effect in the legislature that just ended this May, and I have the original text of it, so I'm not sure if this word for word went into the law. But there was at the state level, state law, excuse me, a $1.5 million study that's going to be conducted as to the highest and best use, excuse me, of the 200 acres that comprise Brainerd Airport. And so that study is supposed to commence, I believe it's July 1st. It is going to be finished not later than October 15th of 2023. And then I think that the state will try and make some kind of a determination as to what will happen with Brainerd. So I would suggest tonight that perhaps it's premature to do anything in regards to this in light of that new state law that is in effect right now. I'm going to grab my water.
While Cindy's getting the water, Mr. Chairman, I did print out some of the 320, 340-page report.
Could you read it?
The environmental report.
I definitely printed it.
I would recommend not printing it out, because the data that Denise gave us was quite extensive and a lot of detail involved with the studies that have gone through. So,
okay.
Well, I don't know actually what you're being asked to comment on, but I know it's not consistent with our plan of conservation and development. I mean, I printed out, it's funny because on page 76, they show you a beautiful picture of the land in question, and it really is unspoiled riverfront property right now. And it is also, in the map of our community, it is not considered to be managed open space, it's dedicated open space. So I don't know if I can answer any other questions for you or let you know any insights I might have into what's going on, but I'd be happy to try.
I have one question. The reason for the obstruction removal being more conservative now than what it may have been in the past, is it because of some sort of change of the use, or is it just like a change in the determination of what an obstruction is? Is it because, was there something that said, okay, we have to clear more in order to make Brainerd as it functions today safer, or did they change the use of Brainerd somehow that made it so that they decided they needed to do more clearing? I'm just curious why they're doing it.
I think part of it is time, the time that's elapsed. I mean, I think they started with the master plan in 2012, then the tree cutting plan was 2015,
Okay.
Now it's 2022. But I think Councilor Mazzarella correctly stated a couple of weeks ago that despite the incredible urgency in which they came in with as to this has to be cut, this is a danger to pilots, nothing has actually stopped any flights from entering or leaving Brainerd, and none of the trees that they identified in the map of 2020 actually were obstructions, but they anticipate they're growing, and they will be.
Okay.
So I think that's where that comes from. But again, there was no study ever done of any of our land. They haven't identified, endangered species. They haven't looked at the trees and things that are there. I mean, we were never even part of the original environmental assessment. So.
I think it was mentioned there was only a couple of acres that they were talking about working on. Is that?
Are you talking about in this agreement, this abrogation agreement?
I think there were only a couple of acres, right?
It's 4.
4 acres. 4 acres.
4, right. It's the 4 that, if on the map, it's the 4 that are east of 91 and south of Folly Brook.
Okay.
So north of the channel.
No, south of the channel.
Okay.
South of the channel. But north of the channel, which is owned by Hartford, even though it's within Wethersfield, is also subject to these same kinds of requests.
Okay.
But we did grant them a license. I mean, they have the right now to go in there today and to identify those trees and to cut. I mean, nobody objected to the concept of pilot safety. I mean, that was supported by the entire council. But there was also a resolution by the council that did not, that mentioned the noise, that mentioned the expansion of Brainerd, and that mentioned that was not in, Wethersfield's best interest.
$1.5 million study, that's a regional study about Brainerd Airport itself?
It is, actually, and I can read you. This was from the working draft, but I believe that this is the actual text that went into the law. It said that the study is intended to assess the benefits, opportunity, costs to the city of Hartford and to the state of the current use and alternative uses of Hartford Brainerd Airport property, the highest and best use of the property, if not its current use, taking into consideration the findings of the subdivisions inclusive of the such and such. And it goes on to say that what they're trying to determine is what is the best use of these 201 acres. And the study will be no later than October 15th of 2023.
Pretty wide-ranging.
It is.
Assignment, yeah.
It is. I think you can see that East Hartford has their plans. You can see Rocky Hill has announced their plans, and now it's Middletown, above the banner and the current. They're going to have a marina, and people are discovering the opportunities that exist there. I think Hartford has indicated they'd like to do the same.
Sure.
But this land is owned by the state, not by the city.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for letting me speak.
Tom, did you have anything else?
Couple things to add. I dug up my pile of papers, trying to shoot from memory.
Tony has a bigger pile of papers.
No, I had that.
Mine's bigger than yours.
300 pages?
I read that a couple of times.
Oh, okay. Good map.
Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill, just for the record. A couple things I just want to mention. The draft clearance easement that was in your packet references Exhibit A and B. I could not find those, so I can't imagine how you could decide what to do with an agreement when you don't have the agreement to read. So just throwing that out there. I did want to clarify, there's some comments that were out in the community, or maybe in some of the emails, I'm not sure exactly where I saw it, but they're not talking about selling property. We're talking about selling or giving right of way to an airspace above the property. So, and those actual dimensions, I believe, are part of Exhibit A and B, so you can't really see that wedge-shaped approach that I was trying to describe at the last meeting. I wanted to just bring up that when this came before the council, there was 5 items in their proposed document to allow them to survey the trees and figure out which trees had to be trimmed. And we went back to them and said we weren't comfortable with the last item, which was about this airspace easement. Grantee will undertake and complete the process for acquiring an navigation easement over the property in accordance with FAA guidelines, including establishing a price for the easement through an appraisal process. And we said we were not comfortable with that and asked them if they would strike that out of the agreement, and they agreed. Came back with a revised agreement that we signed, or the town agreed to. And now they're coming back wanting that item 5, is what you have before you. I also wanted to just point out that it was clarified tonight where this property is. This 4.1 acre parcel is just to the right of the channel as you go under the 91. And there was a map drawn up that shows the projections of the trees that need to be trimmed. And it's very tough to read to size-wise, but there are 15 trees that need to be trimmed, not removed, trimmed, to get them below that plane of, let's call it a plane of safety of the glide slope of the aircraft coming in. And these are color-coded by height, and they're all just very minimally over the minimum height. Of course, I'm sure they're anticipating growth over the years, but we're not talking about clear-cutting any property. The other thing I wanted to mention was that in this agreement, it talks about all the rights above the surface, and then they slipped in something about projections that will occur as the trees grow. They then want to be allowed to go in and trim those projections in the future, but not just below the plane where they're talking about now, but they want to cut them off at ground level. So,
even though there's a dike just north of everything?
Well, to me, that just gives them the opportunity to cut everything at some point in time. Everything's going to peek over that, plane, and they'll just cut everything. So I would just say, if you're going to go down that road, that agreement needs to be revised to delete that section. And lastly, the agreement does say that if something changes in the future, such as they decide to close the airport or develop it, that this whole agreement is void. So I don't think there's any real harm in proceeding with getting something in place. My personal feeling is that if the town refuses to allow them to go in and give them this easement, that they may just take the property completely by eminent domain, not just the airspace, but just take the whole property. So I think in that event, the town loses more to just keep it as it is with the trees. I keep saying that one more item, but I just wanted to mention that if you're a pilot and you're going to fly into Brainerd, you have some information that you have to check. You know, where the runway is, what the approach is, and so forth. And it gets into projections into this approach zone, if you will. And this one is dated 10/21. And just to give you an example, one runway basically in good condition, obstacles, 75-foot trees 1,400 feet from the runway, 35 feet to the right of center. Another one, 65-foot trees 700 feet from the runway. So it tells the pilots where these projections are that are into this plane, and that to me was the basic intent of what they're trying to do, is make it safer for the pilots approaching. I know if I was coming in there at night, and I wouldn't want to all of a sudden realize there's a 63-foot projection in my windshield, maybe not expecting it. So I'm kind of all about safety, and I'm trying to look at it from a safety aspect and not necessarily, you know, what's going to happen in the future with the airport. It's going to be there, it's not going to be there. Just my 2 cents. I hope that's a little bit help for you guys to make your decision. Thank you.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the trimming of the trees that they're recommending is probably not a big deal, right?
It's a much bigger deal in the other parcel. That's the Conservation Trust. I'm not sure the exact name of it. But the Wethersfield piece, the 4.1 acres, it's trimming of 15 trees, as I see it. It's not.
It's topping them off.
It's topping them off.
Right, and if we remove that clause that allows them to clear cut in the future, then we should be at least protected, right?
That's my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I've read a lot of contracts, and that's the way I see it. I mean,
What was that, 1,400 feet? From the end of the runway, that was the limits that they would need to do any clearing, or?
no, they're just identifying where the projection was,
Okay.
Where the big trees are.
where the big trees are. So you know, basically they're telling you it's 35 feet to the right, so stay to the other side as you approach.
Excuse me, when you look at the plan they gave us, they show yellow or potential tree removal, which is huge. But when you look at the approach surface, it's 14:1, and they say something called a threshold surface of 20:1. What's the difference?
The threshold is the space between the beginning of the runway and where you would start to approach.
Okay, because the threshold shows actually taking trees out on the other side of the river.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Those said the approach area, but when they showed they were going to take out a piece of trees possibly on the other side of the river, it kind of threw me.
What's bad are these pilots?
Look at that. Yellows. Yeah, you get the. Yeah.
So we're talking about right here.
Okay. So it is the threshold then?
Goes out like that and
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Okay.
Right. So this is the conservation area?
Yep.
Where it's a huge problem there. It's just mega.
Tom, this is one of our attachments I think we got within the environmental study. I thought that Page 497.
Yeah.
Now, Tom, what's the council want from us?
We don't want anything from you.
Or what's the CAA want?
They want the easement.
They want the easement,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the council just wants-
The council referred it to us to say, yeah,
Just to either provide comments for them to consider, when they hear this before them, or to give a positive or negative referral.
Yeah, or to say we don't have enough information
Right.
to give
exactly.
either.
Right.
top the trees if they want in the right path. and
I
that's it.
mean, you could make comments without making a determination.
Yeah.
As I said at the last meeting, they have what they need to already trim the trees. This is going on to the future.
This is redundancy?
Well, I think they, in some manner, they thought they had this already in place. I mean, you could put the 108-foot cell phone tower right there, and they can't stop you right now, right? You could put that up. This huge projection right into the airspace. They couldn't stop you because they don't have this easement. The easement should have been in place since the 30s or whenever the airport was started.
And Tom, the council is referring it to us on not under 824?
Yeah, 824.
They're not doing it under.
Yeah, they are.
It is
They are.
824.
Yeah, it's just,
It is
Yeah.
it's an 824 referral. I guess I'm just want to hear maybe for the umpteenth time, but from what I heard you just say and what Ms. Greenblatt said, the airport authority already has the authority by virtue of an existing license to do the tree trimming for purposes of safety right now. They don't need anything more to accommodate the issues of safety.
I don't believe so.
maybe
Why don't
the
we
only
wait-
difference is that a license can be revoked, whereas an easement can't.
Why don't we just wait till the $1.5 million study's done? That's why.
kind of my feeling, is any action on us for any kind of positive referral or determination is premature, that we should.
That's my comment.
Until, the state's going to carry the big, football in this play anyway, and let them make that study and establish the facts thereupon that can be done so that a body like us can make an informed decision.
Right.
As I said before, that the council's position was, trying to speak for the entire council, I can't say exactly, but our intent was to allow them to trim whatever they had to trim to make it a safe approach to the airport. And when they threw in this last item 5 caveat that they wanted this airspace easement, we said, no, we're not doing that. Why should we do that? Well, we don't have to do that. You can trim the trees and go on and, if Wethersfield wants to erect a, 14-story office building, Wethersfield, you could go right ahead and do it. They can't stop you, so.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, not to try to bulldoze anything, but maybe just to move this along, maybe we could say something along the lines of, we support whatever efforts are necessary to, provide for safe approach to Brainerd Airport, but we don't have sufficient information to give a report one way or the other on this easement
That
at this
sounds
time.
good, Mr. Chairman, I like your words on
I mean, I don't know.
I would prefer that the wording say that we don't have enough data and facts to be able to make a positive referral to the council, rather than say, we have no comment
Well, I mean, I don't have enough information to decide either way. That was just my view on it, is,
I don't think we'll have enough information until the $1.5 million. $1.5 million is a lot of money. God bless the state for jumping in and doing that.
well, that
We're going to make
study's
a
probably gonna
recommendation, and
be
then a new study will come through with a lot of detail that we,
300 pages long.
would be a wake-up call,
pictures and-
right, Counselor?
I think that's the second study.
Yeah.
They already did one.
Yeah.
2006, maybe?
Yeah, the first,
All right, well, if somebody wants to make a motion, we can move.
I'll make a motion that no recommendation from this panel is given until the $1.5 million study is given.
Second.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Minutes of July 6th.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll second it. I think Dave Edwards was here because I was talking to him in the parking lot afterward. Unless it was like an illusion or something.
You sure you
He
was
just came
here?
for the conversation.
Yes, he was.
How could you miss him?
He was here. I was talking to him. All right. Okay.
I have a couple
I
of
don't
things
remember that I voted.
to make my comments to Denise privately.
You can email me, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, 2 abstentions from Ryan and Jim. Now we're up to cannabis regulations, staff report.
Okay, so just briefly, we've continued to compile regulations from, or proposed regulations from other municipalities. We did also take a look at some of the revenues generated in Massachusetts. We put together a spreadsheet basically documenting our findings of probably about 25 municipalities. What I was intending to do is, it's a pretty big cache of documents, to set up a Dropbox and email that to you so everybody has access. And essentially the next thing that I would be looking to do is, generally the only differences are the distance requirements. And so, you know, I would prepare some kind of draft language for you to review at the next meeting, and really the conversation would be more about design standards and distances from other types of uses.
And would we, as we're discussing it, are we able to use those distances to define certain locations that would, like, can we talk about them specifically, or? Yeah.
Once I have a better direction of, you know, where, you know, what you want me to input, I could put it into our GIS system and start to generate some
Yeah,
maps.
because then it makes it like a real discussion about, like, it would be here, or here, or here, if we went
Right.
1,500 feet versus whatever. You know, so, because I think that will help, as
The
opposed to
visual.
somebody saying, what if it's in
Yep.
the middle of the Celestine? Like, no, so.
Okay.
So Denise, is this for retail and growth?
I think the conversation is still on the table as to whether or not the commission would entertain regulations for dispensaries versus any other type of use. Originally, the direction from the council was to take a look at the uses exclusive of dispensaries.
Right.
So at our last meeting, we kind of had a conversation about taking a look again at what other municipalities were doing, and that's what I've just done. So I'll provide to you some copies of draft regulations for dispensaries as well, and we can have that conversation. unless you want to have that now.
Yeah, let's take another 5-minute break and then,
We gotta go on the parking lot first.
That's funny.
all right. Public comments on general matters of planning and zoning? Okay.
Finn, they weren't calling you up. They were just saying if there was any members of the public that wanted to speak. But if you do want to talk about any of your findings.
Yeah, I think we're still under staff reports.
Yeah, okay.
And you're kind of
Oh, that's right, I'm a
staffish.
staff member, yeah. That's a good point, yeah. All right,
Or you can wait till next time.
there is next time too. But I can just kind of just shoot the shit and kind of talk about some interesting
You can't say
findings. Finn Ashworth, 201 4 Mile Road, West Hartford. Yeah, we've done the past, saw you guys last month. Since then, I've looked at more municipalities, not just 25, but it's all the surrounding towns and stuff. Looked at all their regulations, some interesting ones I've highlighted in the documents I've been compiling. On top of that, I've looked at the different types of tax revenue systems that Massachusetts has imposed on, in some cases, certain taxes are specifically on retailers, and some are on both. But the numbers are pretty large. And in one of these cases, I looked at, I actually forget which actual agency in Massachusetts deals with these finding these tax revenue systems, but one, I think I was looking at their budget or something, and they compared the tax revenue they got from cannabis with alcohol and with cigarettes, and it's interesting to see that comparison. Since they first started getting revenue from cannabis in the 2019 fiscal year, and the numbers have been going up a lot. I could give some right now as an example. So in 2019 fiscal year, this was just a general state tax. It's just called the Massachusetts Cannabis Excise Tax. It generated $13.9 million, and bring that up to the 2022 fiscal year, as of January 2022, so it's only halfway there, and they generated $74.1 million. So this isn't the local tax option, but that was just the general one. I also have the local tax one, and a lot of other stuff. And I tried using their numbers to estimate how much a retail business would make based on the 3% municipal sales tax that we have in Connecticut. And the numbers were a little different. Apparently, I told Denise that I had talked with the West Hartford town planner, their town manager. He had a little bit different numbers than I found. But yeah, and there's a lot more information that we have on this database that we can set up. Yeah, and then I also, one last thing, I kind of took an average of a lot of the surrounding municipalities and found that on average, they said that any cannabis facilities, they couldn't be located within 200 feet of residential district, or within 500 feet of any municipal or kind of public land use areas. And from that, I had actually used our GIS platform, and just fiddling around, I figured out that if you apply those to the town, there were 21 potential locations. And I had to, again, a little map set up, but we could obviously do that very easily, and we could maybe use multiple numbers and generate multiple maps. Not sure how you want to do it, Denise.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice to see the difference between.
If we set it as 100 versus
Yeah.
500.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of them are probably in the area of the navigation easement east of 91.
I mean, I
We
think
could just
general,
set up
you
a
know,
tower,
there's
maybe a
general
14-story
standards,
building.
and then there's a few towns that have outliers, but, you know, we'll identify.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the 200 from residential and maybe 100 from an actual residentially occupied dwelling and 500 from,
Yeah.
you know, schools and churches and so forth. Sometimes they're 1,500. I know there's one that's like 5,000, but that.
Yeah, I can tell
The
you that.
purpose of that was basically to make sure that there was only one in the town.
Yeah, that was in Farmington, yeah.
Yeah.
They did
Well,
that with
Branford
like.
has that too.
Oh, okay.
Right, and since the state dropped the cap, I think that a lot of the municipalities are limiting it to one.
Well, that's,
Right.
that's one of the things that has probably driven larger separation distances, because, just my opinion is, I don't think we can put in our regulations, we can only have one or two because of the uniformity requirements under 8-2. So you have to kind of use as a proxy the zones or the separation distances to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah. But yeah, got a lot of findings that I think you guys would like to take a look at.
How's your experience been so far? Horrifying or?
Yeah, so far so good. I've been loaned out to the engineering department. I've come back and done some work. So it's nice. It's like a little trade-off.
Designing cul-de-sacs.
You mentioned you did some estimates with the 3%. What was the number?
Pricing out curbing.
Okay, yeah, I can give you a look at that. So I looked at it because for some reason I was looking in, I couldn't figure out the exact number of current dispensaries in Massachusetts that had approved licenses and were operating. Because sometimes they'd approve a license and it takes some time before they're like up and operational. But I kind of estimated, I think based on some sites, and again, it's still in the works, but they have, like right now, anywhere between 100 and 160, I think up and running cannabis retail businesses. And I went to one of these sites that I would provide a link for and said that in January 2022, there's an estimated $112.8 million in gross revenue from these retail businesses. And then based on these estimates I got from around that time, I did the numbers. I changed that. I made an annual, and then I cut out the 3, and then I basically made I multiplied that by 0.3 to find the 3% municipal sales revenue. And I got from that, and I'll provide these findings too, but there was somewhere, so the average tax revenue that we would make annually from a cannabis retail business, I thought was anywhere between $403,000 to $253,000. Now, the town manager in West Hartford, he found, I think he lowballed it. I'm not sure where his sources were, and I kind of emailed him about that. He said it was going to be an annual tax revenue of, I think, $120,000, which seems lower than what I found in Massachusetts, but I'm not entirely sure.
This is 120,000? Well, that would be like 4 million gross sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yes,
right.
yeah, it's 4 million.
Per retail.
It's not an
establishment.
unreasonable.
Yep. Yeah, per retail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 million gross.
You'll have some of this detail next meeting?
Yeah.
Great, good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now from the public. Public's done. All right, we got CROG referral letters, we got the planning and zoning newsletter. thinking we already have kind of set ourselves up to cancel the August 2nd meeting.
I have a few applications pending, but they came in after the deadline to advertise them for the next meeting. So right now, I have nothing for the August 2nd meeting.
All right. So we'll treat that as canceled and everyone enjoy themselves.
Enjoy your vacation.
So the next meeting will be the 16th, you think?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Anything else anybody wants to talk about before we go?
Talk about a motion to adjourn?
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
No, I want to talk about it. Discussion.
Not a debatable motion.